My story made headlines too, featured in national newspapers and broadcast on the evening news, not just because of a surge in bike thefts, which has been a growing problem here, but because everyone in the Netherlands understands what it means to lose your wheels. There is a visceral appreciation that a bike is fundamental to daily life. People have asked why I didn't keep my bike inside my home rather than leaving it on the street. But in this small, densely populated country, most of us here live in apartments. Bikes are as much part of the streetscape as the canals. And while everyone here seems to own a bike, bike theft is endemic. Without a national register like cars, bikes drift through shadowy chains of steal on demand and resale. Just days ago, police raided a shop selling stolen electric bikes. They're now checking frame numbers. I'm still hoping one of them might just be mine. My insurance has paid out. My new bike has been ordered and should arrive within weeks. Meanwhile, the company that made my bike has lent me a temporary replacement. Back in the saddle, I've rejoined the flow, rediscovered my flow, whizzing between work and school, and reminded that riding a bike in the Netherlands, like Dutch communication, is all about efficiency and connection. And through the cycle paths, even as strangers, we're united by those red bike lanes, like arteries crisscrossing the city, sustaining its life.
Anna Holligan, now back in the saddle. That's all for this week. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. And we'll be back again next weekend here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC programme from our own correspondent. I'm Saroja Coelho. Have a great day.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC. We're live on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. And you may not be in your home today. As we know, Manitoba remains under a state of emergency. 17,000 people either moved or on the move from the north to the south, and in some cases into other provinces as well, as people continue to find space due to fleeing the wildfires in this province and across Saskatchewan as well, parts of the prairies here. So we'll keep you updated on all of that. With that in mind, I'm doing a quick hello here and to the team, and then we'll get to Heather Wells in our news center. So good morning to Sierra Sanders, who's directing the show this morning. We'll be covering your commute on air. Good morning to Abby Adiyemi behind our controls, our senior tech. Abby covers weather on the show. Good morning to Travis Peterson, making a special presentation back in the team, filling in for Brad today. He's our YouTube producer, so you can check it out on YouTube, the show, if you watch us streaming. Now, as promised, before the weather, in fact, let's go straight to Heather Wells and get the lay of the land this Monday morning after, obviously, a tense weekend. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, wildfire evacuees fleeing Puckatawagan were taken by helicopter to the Paw over the weekend. A Chinook helicopter flying 40 people. Now, 25 active wildfires are still burning, many continuing to grow. The city of Flin Flon remains under a mandatory evacuation. So far, the fire there has not breached the perimeter of the city. Meanwhile, hundreds of people are still waiting to be flown out of various communities, and shelters have been set up for evacuees in Winnipeg, Thompson, Winkler, and Portage la Prairie. Others, as you mentioned, are being sent to southern Ontario. In other news, downtown Winnipeg was showing off all the colors of the rainbow yesterday. More than 10,000 people taking part in the annual Pride Parade. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it sure was something to see the hazy sky and the residual smoke in Winnipeg here from all the fires up north, and then all those pride colors and rainbow flags with those thousands of people. So we're going to actually begin the show with that. We'll take you to the Pride Parade. A little bit later in the program, we have a live information for you as is needed today. So coming up after 8 o'clock, we're going to have one of the counselors on from I got to get my paper straight here, community straight, from Puckatawagan this morning. So that's the councillor we're going to have on. We're also trying to see if we can get the mayor of Flin Flon, and we'll have more coming up in a moment, actually, on national news on the fires. Stay here.
On Cue with Tom Power.
The Canadian musician Melanie Fiona rose to stardom in the early 2000s because of her powerful voice. Then she lost her voice, literally and figuratively. After a decade-long break from music, Melanie will be here to tell you why she's back.
No more fighting.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Mark Carney faces his first test of national consensus building today. The new Prime Minister is in Saskatchewan meeting with provincial and territorial premiers for the first time. A big focus of their time will be on what Carney calls nation-building projects. Here's more from Rafi Bouchikanian.
I'm looking forward to finding some common ground. We've had a couple of nice texts.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has not been shy about what she's looking for. Faster approval for pipeline projects crisscrossing Canada, including one to the west coast.
And I think that there's a spirit of collaboration.
There has certainly been the talk. Prime Minister Mark Carney has spoken for months now of nation-building projects that kickstart the Canadian economy, setting high hopes and expectations for his first meeting with premiers since he got elected. New Brunswick's Susan Holt says investors would be interested in new energy projects.
I think the case is looking better and better as we see the demands globally and the constraints in supply.
Quebec Premier François Legault, though, is still looking to be convinced. Some of the popular opposition to a pipeline through the province has subsided in recent months, but he says that's not all that matters.
If there's a project, we're ready to look at it if it goes through Quebec territory, but we'll need to have economic impact, positive ones for Quebec.
It may not be the only point of disagreement.
This is a difficult country to govern.
Goldie Hyder is the president of the Business Council of Canada.
It's a country, it's not a corporation. You can't just tell everybody what to do. You have to consult.
Some Indigenous communities have already voiced concerns regarding legislation Carney's government could table as early as this week about major project approvals. Rafi Bouchikanian, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Meantime, there's no relief for crews battling wildfires in Western Canada. In Saskatchewan, windy and dry conditions over the next few days will likely cause fires to grow aggressively. There are now 15 active fires across the province. 6 are out of control. The situation is similar in Manitoba, where 10 of about 20 fires are not contained. The crisis has forced thousands from their homes, and as Sam Sampson reports, the province is running out of places to house them.
A normally sleepy train station in Winnipeg filled with Manitobans fleeing wildfires over the weekend. After being flown out of Puckatawagan in the north, residents like River Caribou took a 16-hour train ride to seek refuge.
Yeah, but it was very comfy. The bologna sandwiches were great.
How are you feeling now?
Tired. Yeah, I could use a hot shower.
But rooms are running out as 17,000 people flee fires in Manitoba. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Cara Wilson, among others, is urging the province to force hotels to make room for evacuees.
And it's really sad to see, our children having to sleep on floors. People are sitting, waiting in hallways, waiting outside.
Manitoba's premier says about 3,500 evacuees are going to southern Ontario to free up space in Winnipeg. Fires forced more communities in Saskatchewan to evacuate over the weekend. Officials say conditions are bad, and without rain, the fires are expected to grow. Rain did fall in Alberta, which helped firefighters, but conditions are still too dangerous for the 4,500 Albertans forced from their homes to return. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
The FBI says it is investigating an act of terrorism. Several people were injured during a demonstration in Boulder, Colorado. Police say a man used a makeshift flamethrower and hurled an incendiary device into a group that had gathered to show support for Israeli hostages in Gaza. At least 8 people were injured. CBC's Richard Madden joins us now. So, Richard, what do we know?
Yeah, federal and local authorities continue to investigate this attack that happened during an afternoon march yesterday in support for the Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. Now, a few dozen people were peacefully walking down a busy pedestrian mall in Boulder, Colorado, when a man allegedly started yelling at them and then tossed bottles filled with some kind of liquid. Here's the FBI's Mark McCallick describing what happened next.
Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. The suspect was heard to yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack.
Now, authorities say there are at least 8 victims between 52 to 88 years old. One of them is a Holocaust survivor. All are suffering very serious burns. Now, this attack follows the deadly shooting less than 2 weeks ago here in D.C. of 2 Israeli embassy staffers outside a museum. Investigators say that suspect also yelled "Free Palestine" after his arrest.
So, Richard, now then, what are authorities then saying about the suspect?
Yeah, police have identified him as 45-year-old Mohammed Solomon. Reports say he's an Egyptian national who authorities believe acted alone. Now, the White House says President Trump has been briefed on the attack and that the suspect should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
CBC's Richard Madden for us in Washington. Thanks, Richard.
You bet.
Expectations are low as Russian and Ukrainian officials meet in Istanbul today for a second round of peace talks. The two sides remain far apart, and attacks on both over the weekend have been intense. U.S. President Donald Trump is demanding Kyiv and Moscow make peace. Trump is threatening to walk away from the war if they don't. The first round of talks in mid-May resulted in the biggest prisoner swap of the war, but there was no sign peace was imminent.
We'll build a fighting force that is more integrated, more ready, more lethal than ever.
Meantime, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer describing his plans for the UK military. He'll be releasing the government's strategic defence review later today. It's expected to inject billions of dollars into defence spending to achieve warfighting readiness.
Every part of society, every citizen of this country has a role to play. Because we have to recognise that things have changed. In the world of today, the front line, if you like, is here. The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate, and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War.
Starmer says he cannot ignore that Russia poses a serious threat, adding his goal is to promote peace through strength. Well, in Canada, if your credit card is stolen, you're only liable for $50 of the debt that was racked up. But a Vancouver man found himself on the hook for nearly $20,000 he says he didn't spend. It's part of a worrisome trend, according to one cybersecurity expert. And with fraud on the rise in Canada, he says financial institutions need to do more or need to be more transparent. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
It was definitely astonishment.
Jordan Judge wasn't expecting 2 charges totaling almost $20,000 on his Scotiabank Visa card. Almost $18,000 paid to a British university, another $1,800 to someone he'd never heard of. He contacted the bank right away. It investigated, told him he was responsible for the charges. Judge insisted they're wrong, that he was a victim of fraud, but that made no difference.
They didn't care what I had to say. They just go along with, well, you're being held accountable.
Scotia said evidence suggests that passwords sent to his phone to authorize the transactions must have been shared. Judge says he only got one password and swears he didn't share it with anyone. Jeff White of the Public Interest Advocacy Centre says Scotiabank needs to prove its customer did something wrong.
I haven't seen any evidence that there was negligence in this case, and that's the standard really for this customer.
Scotia says the verification method of texting a password before processing a transaction is a proven way to mitigate fraud. But cybersecurity expert Claudio Popa says it's not foolproof.
This technology is not resistant to being intercepted, to being abused.
After Go Public investigated, the university refunded the almost $18,000, and Scotiabank quietly reimbursed the rest. The bank never told Judge why and declined to answer any of our questions. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Canadian Screen Award goes to The Apprentice.
Well, the best in Canadian film, television, and digital storytelling was celebrated last night, and The Apprentice was a big winner. The film, based on Donald Trump's early career, won Best Motion Picture at the Canadian Screen Awards. The Ontario shot film won 5 awards in total, including Best Performance for lead actor Sebastian Stan. Law & Order Toronto Criminal Intent won for Best Drama Series. CBC Radio-Canada also walked away with some hardware. 42 awards in total. CBC News won 7 of them, including Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault for Best National News Anchor. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Information Radio. Thanks for being with us on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, of course, we have a state of emergency still in effect for Manitoba. Let's go straight to Heather Wells now in our news center and find out what the very latest is on this serious morning. Some people might be feeling a little bit relieved over the weekend. Still people on the move from the north. So Heather Wells just getting ready in our news center. Heather, what's the latest on the wildfires?
Well, some evacuees from Puckatawagan were taken by helicopter to the Paw over the weekend. A Chinook helicopter flying 40 people. As of Saturday night, that wildfire near Puckatawagan had grown to nearly 9,800 hectares and is still listed as out of control. Now, one First Nation that has faced repeated evacuations from floods and fire itself is giving back to those fleeing the northern wildfires. Peguis First Nation welcoming more than 150 evacuees from Pimachikamak. Thousands were ordered out after out-of-control wildfires there threatened that northern community. Peguis Chief Stan Burns says he is happy to help anyone in need. We're going to hear more about what's happening, especially as some of these evacuees now are being taken to southern Ontario because of a lack of hotel space in southern Manitoba. Those stories and more coming up at 6:30.
Heather, we should take a second, too. I know that because of the nature of this weekend, people were leaning into social media a lot to sort of see images and get information. And I just want to echo something that I saw someone post. It's just a caution to make sure that you know what you're looking at is, real images of whatever community you're following, real information, follow the news sources wherever you like to double, triple check all your news. Hopefully CBC is one of those because it can be very dangerous in these stressful times if someone sees a photo and it's mislabeled and all of a sudden you think that, for example, a bunch of structures were damaged in Flin Flon, which is not the case.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no structures at all have been damaged in Flin Flon at this point.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So to follow along on what we have, the very latest, you can go to cbc.ca/Manitoba, as Heather mentioned, and she's back with a full newscast at 6:30. Right now, it's time to turn our attention to the actual weather. And finally, Abby, at least we have a little bit of shower activity in it. Good morning.
A little bit of action of some showers in the air, but we're still dealing with that smoke from the southern part, tracking it all the way up north with some cloudy conditions mixing with that. A few showers will be spotted here and there, and that should clear by the afternoon period. We'll see mild windy conditions shifting from the northwest and heading mainly west. Still, we have air quality warning for much of northern and southern Manitoba due to that fire from Victoria Beach all the way down to the White Shell. We're seeing poor air quality. I stepped out this morning. I could feel the smoke in the air. And
it's very present today.
So you will notice it as you step out, but that should clear up a bit as you get into the day. Conditions in Winnipeg at this time, 17 degrees, hazy outside. As the morning goes on, we'll see the sun make its appearance and it will take over, although the haze will be sticking around. Temperatures will climb close to around, 19-20 degrees in the city. Today, it's going to feel a bit light, though. And then across similar conditions we're seeing in the southern parts, temperatures between 14 and 18 degrees at this time. Up north, we're seeing temperatures hover around 7 and 11, smoky and hazy also. Across board, Mercy, we are looking at smoky conditions, but we're expecting light rains in most of the region that should help cool things off.
We'll see. It'll start at least. We need much more rain than we're promised. But Dave Phillips, by the way, Environment Canada senior meteorologist, is going to be on our show in the next hour. So we're going to look at the bigger picture of precipitation in so much as we can figure it out. This afternoon, though, as mentioned, we could be seeing some rainfall. All right, let's get into what's happening in the traffic situation. Our director this morning, Sierra Sanders, is in to update us. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. How are you?
I'm well. So what do you know?
So far, there's been no calls on the commuter lines, but we do have an update on the Louise Bridge. So on Friday, the city of Winnipeg announced the closure of the bridge. It's been extended until the end of July because of additional...
So we thought it was June 1st.
Exactly, but they announced on Friday that they're extending the closure until the end of July, but that it means it's closed to cars until the end of July, but pedestrians and cyclists can still use the bridge. So far, that's all I have for now, but if there's anything else slowing people down out there, whether you're walking, biking, or driving, you can call the CBC commuter line 204-788-3093.
It is 6:15 right now, and we are going to start with something bright and light and fun and lovely and hot. Yesterday was so hot, but it didn't stop thousands of people from marching through downtown Winnipeg in celebration of 2S LGBTQ plus Pride. Yesterday, festivities for Winnipeg Pride Parade began at the Manitoba Legislature. They were followed by a march to the Forks. And as I mentioned, the images of the day, if you haven't yet been to our website this morning, are really lovely. With the wildfire evacuees in mind, that gray, hazy smoke in the sky, and then all of those bright colored rainbow flags and all of the other glitter and costumes that come out for Parade Day were against the backdrop of that sky. But it was Manitobans coming together for a different reason in solidarity. CBC's Gavin Axelrod spoke with some people who attended the parade and the rally, including Jeremy Stubler, a Winnipeg teacher who was there with his son.
What brings you out today to the parade?
I think the biggest thing is making sure that showing support for the students that we get a chance to work with, and making sure that he grows up knowing that everyone gets a chance to love whoever they want and be with whoever they want.
What's it like to see, I guess, so many youngsters out here today to be part of this?
I think it's really important when it comes to making sure that our classrooms and our schools know that everyone's accepted and everyone's got a chance to do what they want and be whoever they want.
Say you brought your child to the parade today. Why was it so important to bring them out here?
Because we want him to know when he grows up that he can be whoever he wants and do whatever he wants, and being at an event like this is really important to see that. Just him getting a chance to see all of this and getting to see everybody and the colors and the happiness and all that good stuff.
How old's your son?
3.5.
Just tell me, what does Pride mean to you?
Pride means to me that it's, you love whoever you want to love and you celebrate who you are.
What does a day like today mean to you?
Just pure happiness. I've been part of this community for a long time, and this brings me more joy than anything.
What do you think today might mean to someone who's still trying to find their way in the community today?
I really hope somebody who's still trying to find their way, that they find that we're as accepting as we all are, and that they find who they truly want to be and who they wish to be in the future.
There's a lot of young children out here today too. What do you think it means for them to sort of be involved in something like this and see something like this from an early age?
Young kids, it's opening their eyes, making sure that, that they understand that this is not something to be scared about or nothing to be, in a negative way. This is all very opening, and everyone here is great. Coming every year to see it bigger and better every year, more colorful. Oh, it's great. I believe that everyone who, comes to this and, shares in that beautiful celebratory day.
It's a nice experience. This is our first time. I'm also from Ghana, like you said. And then we are very happy to experience a new culture, because back home we don't have this kind of stuff. Yeah. And one thing I love to see is in Ghana, our culture, most of the people in our culture frown on these things. And that is why we flew from our country, just to have our rights and then have our privacy. No discrimination here, and we love the people. We are free here, we're living happily life. Back home we don't have this right. Yeah, most people they are even against it. So we are happy, and then we are very proud to be part of Winnipeg.
So CBC's Gavin Axelrod was out yesterday at the Pride Parade and rally, speaking with Prince Amo Owasu, as well as before that he spoke with Stephanie Steelan and Jeremy Stubler, people who came to the parade. In case you're wondering if you thought, wow, that looked like a lot of people downtown, there certainly were. More than 10,000 people walked in the Pride Parade in Winnipeg yesterday.
As wildfires impact our province, keep up to date with CBC. For the latest information, listen to CBC Radio 1. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba or the CBC News app. For people who have a limited data plan or are running into spotty mobile service on the road, visit cbc.ca/lite. That's cbc.ca/LITE.
So let's get the latest on the fires, of course, just by way of updates here and headlines. Heather was just in talking about the fact that we do have 25 wildfires burning in the province, 10 of them still considered out of control, rather. Just a reminder for all of us in this province, backcountry travel is prohibited without a permit. There's a full burn ban in place. Campfires are prohibited, even in approved pits. Watercraft restricted to landing and launching at developed shorelines only. Shore lunch is prohibited and camping restricted in developed campgrounds only, restricted to campgrounds that are developed only. So just some highlights here, because I know it sure is feeling like nice summery weather to those of us who aren't in fire areas. And if you're thinking of traveling to any of these areas, don't check first and know what what is under a prohibition in this province right now because of the fires. So this morning we'll see what happens as evacuees continue to make their way to Winnipeg and in some cases Ontario, where they're being welcomed in Niagara Falls. That's the people of Pimicikamak. And just Pimicikamak, by the way, there's 10,000 people there, about 6,600 on reserve. Just you think about the size of these communities. So that's more people than Flin Flon. That city, 5,000 people. All of those people were out last week. And also then we have a Puckatawagan that we're talking about there. There's about 1,800 people on reserve that have been evacuated, and most of those folks are in Winnipeg. Well, as we turn our attention to other news outside of the fires, let's talk about a new COVID-19 variant that's seeing rising cases in some countries. Some experts are saying it's a reminder to many nations to not let COVID monitoring and research fall to the wayside. So to talk about it, Colin Furness is with us, epidemiologist and associate professor in the Faculty of Information at the University of Toronto. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So tell me, what do we know about this new variant in terms of any key differences, I guess, in severity or symptoms?
We're still learning. This variant was identified about 6 months ago and is now spreading rapidly in Asia. Unlike the variants that we have been dealing with over the last couple of years, this one has a mutation that would appear to make it not just better at evading our immune system, which is really what we've been seeing, but better at actually attacking our cells. So in other words, it's got a little bit of a better mousetrap in terms of how it infects us. That's concerning because that kind of behavior can be associated with more severe illness and hospitalizations. So it's still early days, but that's what we're watching.
Can you elaborate sort of just in an example way of what you mean by the difference between, what it means to be, I guess, better at attacking us? Like if I'm prone to migraines when I get COVID in another strain, what does that mean for me, for example, or some kind of, practical example of what you mean?
Well, as I say, the variants have usually simply been better at disguising themselves and getting past our immune system by simply making themselves less recognizable, but being the same pathogen. In other words, if your body has had COVID infections, if your body has had immunization, then you're more likely to get infected, but not more severely. In this particular case, though, if this variant is able to attach better, and it looks like it is, that's where more severe illness can happen. So that's where it's not just about getting infected, but it's about having a harder, heavier case. And where this virus has been spreading in Asia, there are news reports, and it's hard to get reliable data, but there's news reports that hospitalizations have gone up. So again, that's concerning.
Where then, can you elaborate? You just mentioned, but where it's spreading primarily right now?
Well, it's actually hard to give you a great answer because global surveillance is now so poor. But we do have reports from China, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan that hospitalizations are up, that this new variant has gone from being about 5% of cases to about 10% of cases in the course of a week. And that may not seem like a big increase, but it is. It's also been detected in the United States, and that means if it's not here already, it probably will be soon. And I think it'll be in the coming weeks and months that we need to be very vigilant about what the impact is on us.
To what degree have our public health measures like vaccines have kept up with the reality of COVID in your view?
COVID is a lot more nimble than we are. And the problem with vaccines, well, there are many, but the problem with vaccines is that it's a long game. You need to detect a variant. You need to figure out what the effectiveness is. You need to figure out predict whether this is the variant that is actually going to be dominant over the next year. Then you need to reformulate the vaccine, test it, and then produce it, and then get people to take it. So COVID is a lot more nimble than we are. And so vaccines are always playing catch up. The good news is that there is a current belief that vaccination is effective against this variant, but incrementally less so. Every time new mutations accumulate in the virus, it gets a little bit further away from the vaccine's effectiveness. So vaccination remains an excellent choice and something that I believe people should do, and that's what the National Advisory Committee on Immunization says is a good idea, to have that annual booster twice if you are vulnerable, pregnant, or have underlying illnesses or other kinds of vulnerabilities. But vaccination is not the whole show. And I think it's important for us to understand it's one tool, and there's other things that we can and should do.
Like?
Well, not a lot of people are fans of masking. There's a lot of fatigue. There's a lot of burnout there. But I would like to suggest that places like public transit and elevators, and when you're shopping, places where your face doesn't matter so much, but your health does, I think those are good places to mask. And if you aren't carrying a mask with you, maybe to at least have one with you so you have that choice. But the other big thing, and this is really big, is that COVID is not a seasonal virus. We don't have to wait until winter to do something about it. Summer is upon us with this new variant. Let's go outside. The more we're outside, the less that we're sharing air, the better off we are in lots of ways. But certainly that is a really great way to keep COVID at bay. If we all went outside, we'd be a lot better off.
All right, we'll leave it there this morning. Thank you very much, Colin.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thanks.
That's Colin Furness, an epidemiologist and associate professor in the Faculty of Information at University of Toronto. It is 6:26 a.m.
They challenged Manitoba high school students to champion the environment with a video. Now you can see the results. The Climate Change Connections Youth Video Challenge, sponsored by CBC. Get inspired by the winning videos from River East Collegiate, St. John's Ravenscourt, and Louis Riel Arts and Technology by visiting cbc.ca/Manitoba/community to watch.
We have new music this morning from Montreal's Sophie Paris, who goes by Fine Food Market, drawing her classical piano training to make dream pop. This tune's called Wild World. This is Sophie Paris, a.k.a. Fine Food Market. That's their stage name. Tune's called Wild World. The brand new EP has kind of got a fun name. It's called I'm Afraid to Be in Love with Someone Who Crashes Their Car That Much. Maybe good advice, right? Coming up, we have business news. Crystalie Ramlakan is going to be back with our report. Canada Post and its workers continue to be opposed, and we're going to hear more about that if you missed the story on World Report. In addition, U.S. President Donald Trump says he's going to double tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50%. So we're going to hear more about that from Crystalie after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 18 degrees, and could this be the day we actually get some rain? A few showers expected this morning, ending this afternoon. Still widespread smoke. You can smell it out there this morning, and a high today of 19. Airlifted to safety. People landing in the Paw over the weekend, escaping smoke and flames threatening their communities. CBC's Josh Crabb was in the Paw as evacuees arrived.
You can see water bombers and a Hercules aircraft here to take evacuees from the Paw to Winnipeg. For the past several days, this airport has been a hub of activity with helicopters and airplanes landing with loads of evacuees. It's mainly been the Royal Canadian Air Force, but other agencies are assisting as well. This is where people from Puckatawagan are landing with nothing but a bag full of clothes and personal items. They've been telling me they're arriving tired, hungry, and stressed after waiting days to be rescued. There's tables of food and drinks for them to grab. Then they have to figure out where to go next, some even going as far as southern Ontario because the province is running out of hotel space. Many are being transported to southern Manitoba by train or bus. There's also a large-scale evacuation of Pimachikamak Cree Nation, northeast of where we are. The Armed Forces is using Hercules aircraft to move people from that community.
CBC's Josh Crabb. Now, as Josh mentioned, evacuees are headed to southern Ontario, some of them. MKO, the Northern Chiefs Group, says the first plane carrying 47 Pimachikamak Cree Nation members arrived in Hamilton, and the evacuees then made their way to Niagara Falls by bus, where they were given a hot meal and hotel rooms. 200 more evacuees arrived in Niagara region last night, with up to 600 arriving today. Now, 25 active wildfires are still burning, many continuing to grow. The city of Flin Flon remains under mandatory evacuation, and so far, the fire has not breached the perimeter of the city. There have been no fatalities and no properties in Flin Flon have been damaged. Shelters have been set up for evacuees in Winnipeg, Thompson, Winkler, and Portage-la Prairie. And evacuees who do not yet have a place to stay are asked to go to the reception center at Billy Mosienko Arena. A First Nation that has faced repeated evacuations from floods and fire is now giving back to those fleeing the northern wildfires. Peguis First Nation welcomed more than 150 evacuees from Pimachikamak over the weekend. Thousands had been ordered out after that out-of-control fire threatened the northern community. Peguis Chief Stan Bird says he is happy to help those in need.
People from other communities stepped up. They helped us. We appreciated that. We couldn't have done it without them. So we're just trying to reciprocate. We're trying to give back to the people from up north.
The evacuees will stay at the Peguis Multiplex Center, which can house about 300 people. A number of local organizations are wrangling support for the wildfire evacuees. Over the weekend, several church groups, the Manitoba Islamic Association, the Manitoba Métis Federation, and Sikh Aid Societies held donation drives. Puckatawagan Band Councillor Kelly Linkletter says people waited days to be flown out of the community, and many faced a nearly 20-hour train ride to arrive in Winnipeg.
They left the community with just one bag. So like babies, of course, formula, diapers, hygiene products, clothes, baby clothes. That would definitely help. And food, hot food when they get here, some nutritious food.
Linkletter says in the long term, communities need better fire protection and firefighting infrastructure. Canada's premiers are meeting with the Prime Minister in Saskatoon today. It is the first time all the First Ministers are meeting with Mark Carney in person since he won the federal election. Alberta's Danielle Smith is optimistic.
I can explain to you that I'm about to go in to meet with the Prime Minister right now, and I'm looking forward to finding some common ground. We've had a couple of nice texts and a couple of nice phone calls, and I think that there's a spirit of collaboration, and I'm going to walk into the meetings with that in mind.
Carney vows to cut red tape and speed up the approval process for big national projects. Canada's leaders are trying to boost trade within the country because of President Donald Trump's trade war with Canada. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A sea of every color of the rainbow in downtown Winnipeg yesterday. More than 10,000 people were part of the annual Pride Parade. Some experienced the festivities and an event like Pride for the first time ever. Prince Amu Uosu says in his home country, events like these just don't happen.
In Ghana, our culture, most of the people and our culture frown on distance. And that is why we flew from our country just to have our rights and then have our privacy. No discrimination here.
Organizers say yesterday's was one of the biggest Pride parades ever in Winnipeg. You can find more news updated throughout the day, including the latest wildfire information. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into what's happening in our regional forecast now. Abby Adeyemi is going to deliver that for us in a moment. We're all waiting for rain, of course. There is some wet stuff in our forecast, but probably not enough to make a massive difference. Just a reminder, as Abby's getting set with that information of what is closed. So in terms of parks that are still closed in this province due to wildfire, Manicotagan River, Nopaming, South Atakaki, Wallace Lake, partial closures in Baker's Narrow, still in through the Whiteshell as well. Some areas are open in Baker's Narrow and Whiteshell now, but you're going to want to check Manitoba Parks website for detail. 211 remains a number you can use for information about fires, and 511 is what you need for highways. So I'm going to slide right into highway information right now. Actually, I'll get Sierra to come in a moment. We will go to Abby. He's ready now with our regional forecast.
We're looking at cloudy skies with lingering smoke almost across board with mild breezy conditions from the south, tracking it all the way into the north. We do have that special air quality statement still in effect for much of the province, and we're looking at it from the Victoria Beach all the way to the Whiteshell and even tracking it into Churchill this morning. Conditions in Winnipeg at this time, we're looking at smoke from the fire drifting into the city, 18 degrees at this time, mostly cloudy. We're going to notice a few light showers this morning. That should clear in the afternoon, but the smoke will remain through the day. Our high will only be around 19 degrees. In the Pembina Valley region from Morden, Winkler, Altoona, tracking it all the way down to the U.S. borders. Similar conditions to Winnipeg, hovering around 17, 18 degrees at this time. Also some light showers expected this morning, but the smoke will remain. Temperatures for that part of the province will fall to 14. In the Westman region, 13 degrees we're spotting in Brandon. Showers and a risk of thunderstorm also in the forecast. Today stays mainly cloudy with some smoke in the air, and high will be around 19 degrees. In Dauphin, we're seeing temperatures hover around 13 degrees. The Parkland region is expecting some clouds to move in through the day. Smoke will remain in the air. The wind will be breezy from the northwest. Today's highs will get to 20 degrees. Gimli, good morning. You are at 16 at this point. You have widespread smoke in your part of the province. A few morning showers and possible thunderstorms expected. That should give way to mostly cloudy skies. The winds will be light from the northwest. We'll see highs around 20 degrees. There's still a 30% chance of showers to come overnight into tomorrow morning for that part of the province. In the powerful influence surrounding areas, we're looking at temperatures around 10 degrees at this time. There, it is smoky. We have that air quality warning in effect for that part of the province, with smoke expected to stay through the day and even into tomorrow. We're going to see winds from the west, and it's going to be mild later. High will be around 20 degrees. Thompson is at 11, also smoky there. Special air quality statement also in effect, warming up to 19 degrees. Churchill is at 7 with smoke in the skies also. We will see a mix of sun and clouds in that part of the province, and high will only be 16. So from smoky to a bit of light showery conditions in the south and hazy conditions, the north will be seeing that air quality statement really felt there. The smoke is really, really much from the Gimli end, tracking it all the way to Churchill.
Yeah. Can we just have a moment for your shirt?
Oh, goat.
I love that. Do you see this, Sierra?
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, Abby's walked in with a shirt that just says GOAT, and you are the greatest of all time, my friend.
I'll take it.
All right, Sierra Sanders is filling in for Corey Funk. Actually, it's going to be filling in for Corey for a big stretch of the time, so I guess an official welcome to the morning.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Problems in traffic?
So far, pretty quiet. I guess the major thing this morning is an update on the Louise Bridge. On Friday, the city announced the closure has been extended to the end of July for additional repairs. It's closed to cars, though. Pedestrians and cyclists can still use the bridge. But looking up north in highways, Highway 280 is closed in both directions from Split Lake to Gillam because of fires in the area. So all lanes are closed, but evacuees from the community of Split Lake are still allowed to travel to Gillam, but closed to all other traffic. But if there's anything slowing you down, whether you're walking, biking, or driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
All right, Sierra, thank you. It is 20 minutes before 7 o'clock, 6:40 a.m. If you're setting yourself in your morning, it means it's time for business news with Christelle Ramlakan, who's back. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks so much, Marcy.
So when you left, we had Canada Post problems. You're back. We still have Canada Post problems. What's the latest on this?
Yeah, that's right. So Canada Post has now rejected a request from the union to send the ongoing labor dispute to binding arbitration. The union represents about 55,000 workers and made the request on Saturday. It says it was inviting Canada Post to a fair, final, and binding arbitration process to resolve negotiations that have dragged on for months now. But the Crown Corporation dismissed the proposal yesterday. Canada Post says it wants to restore stability, and it argues binding arbitration would do the opposite. The organization says arbitration would be long and complicated, would likely last more than a year, and would add to its financial challenges. Now, Canada Post presented an offer last week, which includes an end to compulsory overtime and a signing bonus of up to $1,000, but it stuck to a 14% wage hike over 4 years and part-time staff on weekend shifts, which have been major sticking points in these talks. And Canada Post says the two sides are still at a standstill after months of mediation and has asked the Jobs Minister to force a union membership vote on its latest proposal. Now, the union says a forced vote would not bring lasting labor peace regardless of the outcome. And, Marcy, the union has been in a legal strike position since May 23rd, but so far has opted to ban members from working overtime instead.
To another story, U.S. President Donald Trump over the weekend announced he's going to double tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50% to secure, he says, the steel industry in the U.S. So how are Canadian officials reacting to this?
So the federal minister tasked with Canada-U.S. trade relations says the government has taken note of Trump's latest threat, but stopped short of announcing any formal retaliatory measures, at least for now. Minister Dominic LeBlanc posted on X over the weekend that the government will remain resolute in defending workers and communities. Industry Minister Melanie Joly says Canada is fighting the unjustified and unlawful tariffs with strong domestic support packages and big moves to diversify trade. And she plans to meet with steel and aluminum producers and workers over the coming days to advance a plan in response to Trump's pledge. Now, United Steelworkers, which represents over 220,000 workers in Canada, says a 50% tariff would completely shut Canada out of the U.S. market and is calling on the government to move quickly to strengthen domestic demand. The group says thousands of Canadian
World
jobs
Report
are
friends
on the line
there.
here, and communities that rely on steel and aluminum are being put at risk. And the Canadian Steel Producers Association also says the government must immediately fully reinstate retaliatory steel tariffs. Canada is the largest steel supplier to the U.S., and analysts say levies could lead to supply security and job creation south of the border, but reducing foreign sources of the metals might translate to higher production costs for downstream manufacturers such as automakers, supply chain disruptions, and higher prices for consumers. And they also say new plants would need to be built, which would not be quick, or plants would need to be reactivated, which would not be cheap. And the Business Council of Canada says moving goalposts is just a strategy to try and get Canada to give more in trade negotiations.
And your final story is about how much AI, artificial intelligence, could affect the job market. What do we understand about it?
Yeah, so the CEO of AI startup Anthropic says AI could eliminate half of all white-collar entry-level roles within the next 1 to 5 years. So the CEO says governments should actually start levying taxes on the industry that he claims will exacerbate income inequality as AI companies rake in money. But critics say the white-collar bloodbath rhetoric is just part of the AI hype machine. Past technological advancements and automation, of course, have displaced workers in the past for a while, but ultimately created new industries and jobs. Still, the fear of AI taking jobs may be warranted. Last month, Microsoft announced it was laying off 3% of its staff, including many engineers. Cybersecurity company CrowdStrike cut 5% of its workforce, saying AI was reshaping the industry. But AI may not be ready for prime time. A few weeks ago, Klarna reversed course and started actually hiring humans again after pivoting to AI customer service agents.
We'll have to dig into why and see if that's a trend, right? What's going on in the market so far?
So after this deal announcement from Trump in Europe, stocks are falling. Germany is down. The UK is down. France is down. In Asia, markets are mostly lower as well. Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down. Oil is up $2.49 to $63.28 US per barrel. Gold is up $67.20 to $3,355.50 US per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.21 of a cent to 73 cents US.
All right, Crystal Lee, good to have you back. Thanks for being here.
All right, thanks, Marcy.
Crystal Lee back after a week off the show. She is our business reporter and brings us her report every morning at this time. 6:47 a.m. is the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on that app and on YouTube. Well, let's return to the fire situation in our province. Manitoba remains in a provincial state of emergency due to the rapidly spreading wildfires. Since Thursday, the Canadian Armed Forces has been flying in and out of Norway House specifically to try and pick up evacuees, or to pick them up rather, from Pimicikamak Cree Nation and get them to Brandon or to Winnipeg or to Niagara Falls, where some of them actually are being taken as well, we've understood this morning. Now, after landing in Winnipeg, those that did come to our city, some evacuees chose to take a bus to Peguis First Nation to stay with family. Peguis, of course, is just about an hour or so north of Winnipeg here. Lori Osborne opted to do just that. But with 4 children, the youngest of which is still a baby, the journey was far from easy. She spoke about what she's been through since evacuating with CBC's Joanne Levisser in Peguis, about what it was like the night she took the ferry out of Pimicikamak.
There was a bunch of crying. There's a bunch of hearing people say, I'm hungry, I'm tired, when are we there? And I don't know, I was very grouchy myself too.
When you say crying, was it kids only?
Kids only, and probably me too. Because that stress, it's very stressful having babies with you, having to haul them, especially in this situation. It was hard for me. After we were sleeping in our house and we got up, we went to the multiplex to register again. And then after that, we went to the airport to register again for us to go on a plane. And then we stayed there from 3, and then we boarded at 10.
And then you got on a plane?
Mm-hmm. That big military plane. It felt like a movie. It felt like one of the army movies. Like if you walk in and we had all our backpacks and I was holding my baby. Honestly, I felt scared when we got on that plane. I felt very, very scared.
Did that sort of tell you, oh man, this must be serious?
This is serious. Yeah, that's the moment there. That's where I felt like, holy crap, what we're going through is so crazy. Yeah. That's the moment here. That's when I knew that what we were going through was scary. It was scary.
That must be a lot of weight on a mom to have to keep her kids calm.
That's what I thought. Like, my poor kids. I'm gonna cry.
It's okay.
It's okay. I just felt bad, you know?
Yeah.
Why did you feel bad?
I don't know, they were just so used to being home, and this whole thing was just, I don't know, I just saw my kids, that's all. I felt sorry for them. This one made me cry. My baby. We sat outside the airport for 7 hours, and she was just sleeping on the ground. I kind of had a panic attack, not gonna lie. When I got off the phone with my dad and we got on the bus, right then and there, I just cried.
What do you think prompted that?
I don't know. I guess after I got off the phone with my dad and I was saying, Dad, I'm tired. Dad, I'm tired. I don't know. All I said was, Dad, I'm tired. That's when I started crying. But other than that, being here, my kids are not lonely now. They're having fun every day since we've been here. When I arrived here, I felt so welcome. When I got in the washroom, I noticed towels hanging everywhere, and toiletries and shampoos and toothpaste and toothbrushes. Everything was all ready for us when we got here. It was nice. I felt safe when I just went inside here.
How long, realistically, do you think you can stay living like this?
That's a good question. Probably just a week. I can't live like this forever.
It was a very hard journey to get here.
It was a hard journey to get here for sure.
That was CBC's Joanne Levasseur speaking with Pimicikamak Cree Nation evacuee Lori Osborne. She's now in Peguis First Nation, first evacuated here from her community here in Winnipeg, and then made the way up to Peguis, where she has people she knows there. A hard journey for sure. It's not just her; it's her and her 4 kids and a baby, and so many people in this situation. As 17,000 people are on the move. That's in Manitoba. Now let's widen this out. We know that in Saskatchewan there's also wildfires and a state of emergency there. So let's look at the national picture. My next guest is Paul Boissonneau. He's a board member with the Association and Fire Chief of the Oakville, Ontario Fire Department. And we've talked before about the need to increase our national response to fires in this country. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
What are you thinking as you're listening to that evacuee talk about, fleeing with clothes on her back, her 4 kids, pretty much, 1 bag?
It's heart-wrenching. Certainly on behalf of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, I want to offer my, our thoughts and prayers to all the evacuees associated with Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba. And we certainly send our regrets and condolences to the family and friends and community of the deceased in Manitoba, as well as the firefighter injuries that have taken place. We send our support and strength to all of the personnel on the front lines and to all my colleagues who are dealing with these wildfires. This further exemplifies what we've been talking about for a number of years now, and that the National Fire Administration is absolutely required in order to have that intersection of the provincial wildfire agencies as well as the federal policymakers to ensure that there's a succinct coordination of the resources. We're dealing with unprecedented times across this country, and I guess I shouldn't say unprecedented anymore, because we've been seeing it now for 23, 24, and 25. We have 93 fires that are burning out of control as of today. There's been over 1,600 wildfires to date in 2025. We've had 1.4 million hectares burned thus far. And specifically in Manitoba, there's 15 fires, but we're not talking about remote fires. We're talking about not solely remote. We're talking about fires that are impinging upon towns, communities, cities.
Yeah, they sure are. I want to interject there and focus. I just want to turn us to response here, because you're right. You and I have been talking about the possibility or need for a national response to be in a different coordinated way. I also just want to interject, because we're using the word hectares a lot. All of us are, of course. A hectare, by the way, is if you think about a track and field, right? The loop, 1 hectare is the inside of that. Winnipeg's 46,000 hectares. The fire burning in the White Shell right now is about 4 times the size of Winnipeg, just so people can have sort of images of this. We have had BC firefighters firefighters, Alberta firefighters. We've had personnel coming to help us coordinate it, and firefighters coming from the States to Manitoba to help us in this emergent moment. How would a nationally coordinated system that you've been pressing for change the responses that we're seeing? Like, if we had that in place, how do you think that would maybe have helped us in this moment, or in the future could help us in moments like these?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think on the preparatory phase side of things, it would have been started long before the actual response, because once the response is required, you're essentially chasing your tail after, something is well established. So ensuring that we have the right resources at the right place at the right time, and those decisions are made from a policy level, is so vitally important. We have the ability to certainly help our neighbors. But what we're seeing is there's only 2 provinces across this country right now on the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center's interactive map that aren't dealing with wildfires there in their own provinces. So the ability to help our neighbors is getting more and more challenged. You talked about firefighters coming from other locations. We've got firefighters coming from Australia and Mexico. Currently there is not a great process in place to provide the federal policymakers the right information about what resources are necessary. In some cases, it's not just about getting more people to the front lines. It's about ensuring that the coordination of those people are properly represented so that they're not just coming in without a specific task and or expectation of what to do. In the absence of the National Fire Administration, our group, the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, has been dealing with humane societies, has been dealing with food banks, has been dealing with industry, as an example, and all of these things should be facilitated through a National Fire Administration. We are the only country as part of the G7 that does not have a National Fire Administration. We've been advocating for years. We have a turnkey solution ready. We can put it in place before the G7 meetings, and it's almost ironic that the G7 meetings are coming here and our country is literally burning.
Can I ask you in our last minute here about jurisdiction? Because in Manitoba, of course, we watched provincial responses to some of the evacuation efforts, and then there were First Nations in this province that were waiting for the federal reaction because jurisdictionally they're under the federal government, their own governments, and then the federal government by extension for emergency response. If we had a National Fire Service response coordination, that office you're talking about in terms of prep, would you need to break down all of those barriers as well? So we're just looking at helping Canadians, period.
So it would be about helping Canadians, period, but there isn't the jurisdictional challenges that are kind of foreseen from the federal level. There's actually, it's quite an easy system that's set up, no different than in Japan or Australia or many of the other countries. This isn't about jurisdictional control. It's about that intersection of provincial wildfire does not have the same abilities on structural firefighting as the local authorities having jurisdiction, meaning the fire chiefs. So it's about when things are happening in wildfires outside city limits, and then all of a sudden it meets city limits, that's where that coordination of resources is really, really critical. And right now, in the absence thereof, our colleagues are calling upon their mutual aid partners or friends within communities close and trying to establish incident command posts and work together. It's not the boots on the ground issues that are creating the challenges. It's the oversight from the federal and provincial levels that are creating the challenges. And we have a solution to make that better.
Thanks for being with us, Paul, in this moment. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, thoughts to everyone that are involved. Safety for everybody.
Paul Boissonneau on Information Radio on CBC Live with us, board member of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs and fire chief of the town of Oakville Fire Department. He's mentioning that in this moment as there's gathering that the country's burning because, of course, Manitoba, Saskatchewan in a state of emergency. The Premier is about to meet with the Prime Minister for the first time to discuss their way forward politically. Let's go to Heather Wells for the latest out of our province. Good morning.
Wildfire evacuees fleeing Puckatawagan were taken by helicopter to the Paw over the weekend. A Chinook helicopter flying 40 people. 25 active wildfires continue to burn. The city of Flin Flon is still under mandatory evacuation, and so far the fire has not breached the perimeter of Flin Flon. Shelters are set up for evacuees in Winnipeg, Thompson, Winkler, and Portishead Prairie. Others are being sent to southern Ontario. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
So we have in Winnipeg right now 18 degrees. It's hazy out there. There's rain in Portage La Prairie currently. Our high in Winnipeg 19. It's going to be smoky, and we do have a few showers that should begin and be with us for this morning. Also a few showers expected in Brandon. None of this rain's going to be really enough to help us yet, but temperatures will cool down a bit. Air quality is poor in Winnipeg this morning because of the fires and across much of the province. 511 to check highways. Louise Bridge continues to be closed, and we'll check in with an evacuee from Flin Flon after 7 o'clock.
Today on The Current.
And we'll always be guided by our conviction that our economy is only strong when it serves everyone.
The Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is telling Canadian premiers that he will pump the economy by fast-tracking big infrastructure projects. Experts say that building big things fast is easier said than done. They'll tell us what's needed to make that actually happen. It's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. Today with premiers for the first time since becoming Prime Minister, he and his counterparts agree the gathering is critical in the wake of economic threats from Washington. But with the meeting being in Saskatoon, Carney is also sending a message he's serious on collaborating on resource projects. Janice McGregor is in our Parliamentary Bureau. So, Janice, what is this meeting all about?
Well, we don't always see smiles on the way into First Ministers' meetings. Mark Carney's minister from Saskatchewan, Buckley Belanger, called this an exciting time. These premiers are a bit like kids on their way in to meet Santa Claus. They've all written up lists of infrastructure and resource projects that they're pitching. They're hoping theirs will be picked for the Prime Minister's shorter list of national priorities for finite federal funding and fast-tracked approval. Everyone seems to agree that regulatory delays hold Canada back. Here's the current chair of the premiers, Ontario's Doug Ford.
You can't take 15 years, longest in the entire world, to get minerals out of the ground.
It's the how of it that's the problem. Ford's government, for example, has been accused of steamrollering over Indigenous rights in its rush to pave a smoother way. Business leaders like Goldie Hyder like to see this momentum, but investors know there is no magic wand that governments can wave to get communities on board.
The rules will matter more than anything else there. And so I hope they're hearing us about the fact that you can't legislate the deployment of capital.
The hard choices, picking what can be realistically delivered off these wish lists, that's where the rubber hits the road at today's meeting, and the smiles may not last.
So, Janice, the Premier's demands don't stop at resource projects. What else is the federal government doing to keep them on side?
Well, as the Commons reconvenes this morning, the Liberal government's put on notice a bill to enact tougher border security measures. Premiers pushed for that. Carney's also suggested that even though this sitting is very short, we'll see justice legislation to address Premiers' demands on bail reform too. And all the First Ministers have only a month left before their Canada Day deadline for cutting interprovincial trade barriers.
CBC's Janice McGregor for us in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Well, there's no relief for crews battling wildfires in Western Canada. In Saskatchewan, windy and dry conditions over the next few days will likely cause fires to grow aggressively. There are now 15 active fires across the province. 6 are out of control. The situation is similar in Manitoba, where 10 of about 20 fires are not contained. And as Sam Sampson reports, the province is now running out of places for evacuees to stay.
A normally sleepy train station in Winnipeg filled with Manitobans fleeing wildfires over the weekend. After being flown out of Puckatawagan in the north, residents like River Caribou took a 16-hour train ride to seek refuge.
But it was very comfy. The bologna sandwiches were great.
How are you feeling now?
Tired. Yeah, I could use a hot shower.
But rooms are running out as 17,000 people flee fires in Manitoba. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Cara Wilson, among others, is urging the province to force hotels to make room for evacuees.
And it's really sad to see, our children having to sleep on floors. People are sitting, waiting in hallways, waiting outside.
Manitoba's premier says about 3,500 evacuees are going to southern Ontario to free up space in Winnipeg. Fires forced more communities in Saskatchewan to evacuate over the weekend. Officials say conditions are bad, and without rain, the fires are expected to grow. Rain did fall in Alberta, which helped firefighters, but conditions are still too dangerous for the 4,500 Albertans forced from their homes to return. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Expectations are low as Russian and Ukrainian officials meet in Istanbul today for a second round of peace talks. The two sides remain far apart, and attacks by both over the weekend have been intense. U.S. President Donald Trump is demanding Kyiv and Moscow make peace. Trump is threatening to walk away from the war if they don't. The first round of talks in mid-May resulted in the biggest prisoner swap of the war, but there was no sign peace was imminent. Poland has elected a new president.
Zwyciężymy I ocalimy Polskę.
Right-wing candidate Karol Nawrocki narrowly winning the second-round vote by just over 50%. He beat out his liberal rival, Rafał Trzaskowski, an ally of Prime Minister Donald Tusk. This runoff election revealed the deep divisions in Poland. Nawrocki ran on a conservative platform that is skeptical of the European Union and opposes Ukraine joining NATO. His opponent pushed a more aggressive platform, embracing closer ties with the EU. Although mostly ceremonial, the presidential role has the power to veto new legislation, which could derail Prime Minister Tusk's policy agenda. At least 8 people were injured in Boulder, Colorado, after they were attacked with fire. Police say a man used a makeshift flamethrower and tossed an incendiary device into a crowd of people. They had gathered to call for the release of Israeli hostages in Gaza.
As a result of these preliminary facts, it is clear that this is a targeted act of violence, and the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism.
FBI Special Agent Mark McCulloch says all of the victims are elderly. They were part of a weekly gathering at the popular pedestrian mall. One man is under arrest. 45-year-old Mohammed Solomon was taken into custody at the scene. He is expected to face several charges. Well, it is week 7 of the sexual assault trial of 5 former World Junior Hockey players. Last week ended with one of the accused players testifying in the London, Ontario courtroom. But defense lawyers aren't saying who they might call to the stand next. Here's more from Karen Pauls, who's covering the trial.
Michael McLeod's lawyer has already said he won't be called to the witness box. Court heard from him, Alex Formanton, and Dylan Dubé on police interviews recorded in 2018. Carter Hart testified last week in his own defense and vouching for his former teammates. The men are accused of sexually assaulting a complainant known as EM, who says she was degraded, humiliated, spit on, and slapped while being pressured into performing sex acts on the players in a London, Ontario hotel room. They have all pleaded not guilty.
Hopefully, only one person, perhaps the most articulate, can testify literally on behalf of everyone else.
Leo Adler is a criminal defense lawyer from Toronto who's not part of the case but watching it closely. He says the defense lawyers will have spent the weekend making calculations.
How is my client best served? How do I show that there is reasonable doubt? How do I show that the main Crown witness is lacking in credibility and reliability?
Hart repeated the defense narrative that EM was offering to do sex acts with the players, but he also agreed with the Crown's suggestions. The players were excited and couldn't believe their luck. Court heard that while McLeod was recording the first consent video with her, Hart was texting another player without a girlfriend to see if he wanted to come have sex with her. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
A large solar field in Alberta is generating more than just electricity this summer. It is also producing eggs and honey. The aim is to keep farming the land in some way while generating power. Kyle Bax has the story.
The Strathmore solar field east of Calgary is beginning to resemble a hobby farm. Amongst the rows of solar panels, there are sheep and pigs, and now chickens and bees.
Our vision is essentially farming under every panel.
Farmer Jana Greer is hired to manage the land and keep the vegetation low. For her, the massive solar field is an opportunity to experiment.
We wanted to kind of prove the concept that we can raise more protein and more local food per acre.
Mixing farming and solar power could become more common across the country. Alberta and Ontario have rules requiring solar operators to include some type of agriculture depending on the quality of the land. Here, the chickens lay eggs in a mobile, self-propelled chicken coop that moves between the rows of solar panels. The roaming pasture barns are developed by Uco Robotics, a Manitoba startup. Co-founder Daniel Badiou.
If it does work, I think there's some great applications throughout North America for sure, because this is underutilized agricultural land.
It's unconventional and a work in progress, but it's where the solar industry is going. Wade Huscher is with Capital Power, which owns the solar field.
This is the way of the future. I think this is partnerships that all solar providers should be looking at doing.
The company is beginning a 10-year testing program to better understand how the animals are impacting soil conditions. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Strathmore, Alberta.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm already looking around for where there's rain because that's what we need. We have light rain right now in Brandon. It has moved through Portage, and hopefully we'll get a little in Winnipeg and in northern Manitoba where we need it desperately. Thanks for joining us here as our province remains in a state of emergency this morning. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube on Information Radio. Well, we're going to hear from one of those 17,000 people who is out of their home today. She fled Flin Flon. Her husband is a firefighter, so we're going to hear from her this half hour on the program. Also on our show in this hour, we are going to talk about what do you tell the kids. So we have obviously families that are out of their homes. We have children sleeping on the floor and on cots, and we have parents traveling with babies. Heard from a Pimicikamak evacuee in the last hour of the show with 4 kids trying to make those journeys and waiting. So how do you talk to the kids around this emergent situation? We'll have a discussion about that. And Dave Phillips is going to join us too, by the way, from Environment and Climate Change Canada, to talk about May, obviously the fires, how hot it got, and then what we're expecting for the rest of the summer here. Heather Wells is in with our news headlines first. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Yes, and making it to safety. Wildfire evacuees fleeing Pukatawagan this weekend. They were taken by helicopter to the Paw, a Chinook helicopter flying 40 people. There are many more still in Pukatawagan waiting for a way to get out. Now, a First Nation that has faced repeated evacuations from floods and fires in the past is now giving back to those who are fleeing these northern wildfires. Peguis First Nation welcomed more than 150 evacuees from Pimicikamak over the weekend. Peguis Chief Stan Bird says he's happy to help those in need. We'll bring you the latest on the wildfires and other news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks very much. Let's go to what's happening in the weather forecast with Abby Adiyemi.
Yeah, we're looking at cloudy conditions and smoke in the air in most parts of the province, tracking it from the south all the way up north. Winds are mostly lightly with this special air quality warning in place for large parts of northern and southern Manitoba, and it's going to be you're going to notice it from the Interlake region, tracking it all the way to Churchill. Here in Winnipeg, we are at 18 degrees, smoky skies. We could see a few showers this morning, but the skies will start to clear by the afternoon period. Even so, the smoke will be hanging with us. We warm up to 19. Yes, Brandon, we have light rain shower there. It's sunny in Dauphin, and Gimli is cloudy at this time. It's more like a smoky morning across board. Temperatures now ranging from 13 to 18 degrees in most of the regions. A few spots in the southern regions may see light showers, even thunderstorms, and we'll see highs close to 20 degrees. And as we track it into the northern part of the province, the Par, Flin Flon, Thompson, Churchill, we're looking at smoke is also a big part of the story this morning. Temperatures this morning sits between 11 and 12 degrees up north. Skies are hazy. We will see a mix of sun and clouds throughout the day. There's a slight chance of showers in places like Thompson and Churchill later in the day, and the highs in the north will range from 16 to 20 degrees. And tonight brings more partly cloudy skies. That's sad to say. The smoke is still going to stay overnight. So across board, we're looking at hazy and mostly cloudy day with poor air quality in a lot of areas. So be sure to take care if you're heading outside. Right now, Winnipeg, 18 degrees. We only get to 19 today, and we're still going to see smoke and haze up probably everywhere you go. So Corey, it's the story today is just smoke and cloudy conditions.
Thanks a lot, Abby. I'm just filling in the chair for Marcy for a second. But Sierra Sanders, what's going on with the commute right now?
Yeah, still pretty quiet on the commuter line. But the Winnipeg Traffic Management Center is noting Osborne and Assiniboine Avenue. Emergency vehicles are in the northbound curb lane. So be cautious and keep left to pass there. And as the big news, or not really big news, we've been mentioning the Louise Bridge is now closed until the end of July. The city announced that last Friday. There are some more repairs that need to be done to the bridge, but the sidewalk on the bridge is open to pedestrians and cyclists. And again, looking up north, Highway 280 is closed in both directions from Split Lake to Gillam because of fires in the areas, but evacuees from the community of Split Lake are still allowed to travel to Gillam. Again, if there's anything slowing you down out there, whether you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
7:15 right now in Winnipeg. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in just temporarily here for Marcy Marcusa. A reminder to folks here, just if you do need to know, as fires continue to burn across the province, that there are still a number of parks closed as well, which is worth noting. Manicautagan River, Nopaming, South Attakaki, Wallace Lake, partial closures in Baker's Narrows and Whiteshell as well. That also means that if you are planning, I know camping season is kind of starting already, campfires are prohibited, even in approved pits right now in a lot of those places as well. Backcountry travel is prohibited without a travel permit. Trails and water routes are also closed in a lot of those spots. And even watercraft is restricted to landing and launching at developed shorelines only to prevent fires as well. So keep that in mind for folks. We're going to try to keep you updated on all the rules around that are changing very quickly around our province as we try to keep fires at bay. Well, next year on the show, as you may have heard earlier, last hour, there was a conversation in the business about AI and the impact it's having. But now students, high school students, are starting exams. They're either studying for them or some might even be writing already. And as they prepare for those, they're going to be sifting through pages and pages of content, some of which might be artificially generated. And earlier last week I spoke with David Gerhard. He's the head of the Department of Computer Science at the University of Manitoba.
Good morning.
So just give us a sense, David, of just how pervasive AI use among students is.
In some ways, it's hard to tell because the AI is getting good enough that the usual sort of flags don't really show up. It's not an exact copy of something that somebody else has done, and it's not necessarily obvious when an AI is being used, especially if the students are being a little bit careful and clever with it. But we know that it is pervasive. We know that students are using this across the board to write their essays and their assignments. It's as easy as, take the text of the assignment that the teacher provided, dump it into ChatGPT or your favorite LLM, press the button to say generate, take the result and put it back. I mean, at some point, it would be a surprise if students aren't trying this out.
So is there, like, you kind of give an overarching example, but do you have any deeper examples of how students are using it these days? Anything kind of practical?
Yeah. So any sort of written assignment, or any analysis of any literature or anything like that. I mean, I teach computer science, and so we see students using this to write their code for their assignments. Anytime where there's a deliverable, where there's something we're asking them to do, In a lot of cases, the bot can do that. I mean, we know that these bots can pass the bar exam and can pass the MCAT, the GRE, and stuff like that. They're very good at these like intellectual heavy lifting tasks, which means we have to start to be creative about how we evaluate students and how we ask them to complete work.
Right, and these assignments are the whole idea is that you learn while you do them, right? So, what are they actually learning when they use AI to write an essay for them?
Well, that's just it, right? I mean, it's it's one of the things we have to help students understand is that the essay is not the point. Right? The code that they write is not the point. It's the process of developing the ideas and sort of building out the structure of the arguments that you're trying to make. That's the point. Because at some point, we're going to ask you to write an essay nobody's ever written before. We're going to ask you to argue a point or write code or whatever that nobody's ever done before. And if you've only ever had the bot do it for you, then you're not going to have the ability to develop the arguments to do it yourself, or to be able to read somebody else's essay and interact with it in a critical way to be able to write a response to it.
And what does this mean for teachers too? I mean, is it change the way that they actually craft assignments so that they're more AI proof?
It's starting to. I mean, just like students are starting to play tricks, teachers are starting to play tricks as well. I've heard of some teachers who are embedding tiny bits of invisible text in their assignments, so that if you copy and paste, it copies this other stuff as well that are actually instructions to the bot. And so if the essay comes back with some weird answer halfway through it, then they know it was copy pasted and not done by the person. But to me, the more sort of proactive way to do this is to fundamentally change the way we ask students to do work in the first place, right? We know that these tools exist. We don't want students to not use these tools. It's part of the world now, right? But we want to use them responsibly and carefully and appropriately. And so integrating AI into the question. One thing I've seen people do is, here's the assignment, get ChatGPT to write the essay, and then your job is to critique that essay, right? And then that's the assignment, is to evaluate what the bot does rather than having the bot do the work itself.
Oh, right. But there is that way of like you said, of kind of sneaking in that sort of wording to kind of catch people. But is it obvious when someone's written something with AI? Is it like, how hard is it for teachers to catch? It must be infuriating.
It depends on how the student is using it, right? If you open up a fresh website and go to ChatGPT and say, write my essay, it has a particular way of writing, a particular turn of phrase that is becoming easy to recognize. There was a report from last year that said that it uses pivotal, intricate, showcasing, and realm, right? These four words particularly, very common. And in fact, we see those words showing up in writing all over the world now because everybody's using it. But all you have to do is say, write me an essay and don't use the word pivotal. and then that wipes out that metric, right? As long as students are paying a bit of attention to how teachers are trying to catch AI written content, then it's very easy to prompt the AI to write in such a way that those measures just don't count anymore.
I wonder if there's students who do just as much work trying to figure out how to game the system as it would just doing the assignment.
Well, I mean, at least they're learning something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, is there, a positive role that artificial intelligence can play in learning, you think? Or do you think at the end of the day, it's could be a net negative?
No, I think it's entirely positive. I think as long as we can sort of get past this initial use it, don't use it, and start to recognize that there's definitely a continuum of what it means to use these tools. Like in reality, the best way to teach and to learn and to evaluate and credential your learning is one-on-one, right? If I sit down with a student and ask them about the material, it's clear very quickly whether they know what they're doing or not, right? The exam has always been a proxy to that. But if I can put them in front of a bot and have the bot ask them questions, right, and really dig into where they know and where they don't know, I wouldn't use that necessarily for evaluation, but the student could use that for practice. And it's infinitely patient. It would ask them a million questions and zone in on exactly what they're having trouble with and get them to the next level. It could be incredibly powerful for learning in that way.
And what do you do in your classroom as a university instructor?
Yeah, so I teach computer science, and so one of the things we get them to do is to write code, and often it'll be like really easy, silly, stupid code And I have this question all the time, right? Okay, go write a bubble sort. Oh, why do I have to write a bubble sort? There's bubble sorts out there. I can just copy it from Stack Overflow. I'm like, but you won't know how it works. You won't know how to write the next one and the next one and the harder one, right? The other thing that I'll do is I'll show them. I'll use it in class and say, okay, here's how GPT would write this code. You tell me why this is wrong. Where did it make this mistake? Because it still does make mistakes. So showing it makes mistakes can help the students understand that it's still a limited technology, even though it's very powerful.
Well, David, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
All right. You're very welcome.
So we switched gears there, and Corey snuck in on the show with you. He had that conversation with David Gerhard, the head of the Department of Computer Science at the University of Manitoba last week. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us this morning. We have, though, been talking about AI already this morning, as Corey said in the introduction to that tape. The CEO of an AI startup called Anthropic was on Business News this morning saying that AI, I know we're talking about education, but this is AI in the job market now, could eliminate 50% of all white-collar entry-level roles within the next 1 to 5 years.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world, staying on top of stories around the globe, and connected close to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
As wildfires impact our province, keep up to date with CBC. For the latest information, listen to CBC Radio 1. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba or the CBC News app. For people who have a limited data plan or are running into spotty mobile service on the road, visit cbc.ca/lite. That's cbc.ca/LITE.
7:25 a.m. is the time right now. We had hoped to have a conversation with one of the people that was an evacuee from Flin Flon. We're just not able to find them in a place where they can do that this morning. And naturally, you can imagine, or maybe we can't imagine, what it's like to be evacuated in that way. Previously to this, 17,000 people right now evacuated from north to south because of wildfires. Our next largest evacuation of any people due to a natural disaster would have been the 1997 Red River Valley flood, of course, and that was some 25,000 people who were evacuated through the Red River Valley into Winnipeg and surrounding safer areas. We can tell you that in Winnipeg right now it's 18 and it's very smoky. Brandon is 13 degrees with some light rain falling, and we do have challenges with air quality across the Paw, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, Barons River, Poplar River, Bissett and the Whiteshell and Lac du Bonnet and right through Pinawa as we continue to have 10 fires that are out of control in the province. Your next full update coming up at the news at 7:30. Right now, it's time to turn to morning sports. Scott Regehr joins us via Zoom. Good morning.
Hey there, Marcy.
You got a schwanky background this morning. Look at you.
Oh, fancy new background.
Yeah, I love that CBC Sports
Somebody
logo.
in a previous show says it makes me look like I should do the Mike Myers gag with the canoeing, the feigning canoeing. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it looks like, but there you go.
You have to Google that between casts.
Yeah.
Hockey, a Canadian team has won the Cup, the Memorial Cup we're talking about this time.
Yeah, and since the defending champions were from Saginaw, Michigan, fans in this country, Marcy, will be happy to welcome the trophy given to the best team at the major junior level back to our country. That team this time around, the London Knights, who topped the Medicine Hat Tigers yesterday with Philadelphia Flyers prospect Denver Barkey scoring twice. Here he is.
We built for this for all 4 years and went through the whole process last year. We came up short with 20 seconds to go in a hockey game, and we remember that all summer. We talked about it all year. That's been our motivator. So to get the job done today, it's surreal.
Also surreal, the success the Knights have had since former NHLers Dale and Mark Hunter bought this team. This is their third Memorial Cup triumph, and they have contributed to it with much more than just financial backing. Mark serves as London's general manager, Dale as its team president and head coach. So good on the London Knights. Next year's tournament will be held in Kelowna, and just 2 more sleeps if you're more of a Stanley Cup aficionado before we see the final get underway between Edmonton and Florida.
Let's move to tennis, where the quarterfinals are being determined at the French Open.
Yeah, with the headliner today, a match between England's Cameron Norrie and Serbia's Novak Djokovic. Should Djokovic prevail, Marcy, it'll be his 100th career win on the Paris clay, something only the retired Rafa Nadal has managed before. Of course, Djokovic has his eye on even bigger history this time around. If he wins this tournament, it'll be his 25th Grand Slam singles title, which would place him ahead of Margaret Court for the most all-time and put to rest for many the argument about who is the greatest player in history. Meanwhile, the controversy over night matches at Roland Garros continues. A women's contest has not been featured in that primetime slot since 2023. Former world number 2 Ons Jabeur is among those who've been critical of organizers, saying they should do more to promote the women's game. Well, tournament director Amelie Marismo says it's not that simple.
It's not ideal. We cannot check every box because we have many things to think when we are doing these choices. For me, the message has never been that the girls are not worthy to play at night.
Marismo adds, since there is only one singles match held each night, it has to be a headliner, and it does help that men's matches are best of 5 rather than best of 3 like the women's are, because it ensures the match will be of a certain length.
And let's finish here with a great achievement by a Canadian in cycling.
Derek G. of Ottawa finishes 4th overall at the Giro d'Italia, one of the sport's grand tours, of course. Now he won the Tour de France. He finished 9th with last time it was held, so consecutive top 10 finishes. Although G explains this Giro d'Italia didn't come easily.
Learned a bit of resilience because it didn't start well. There's always a little bit of over-exaggeration of panic from yourself. You know, a group of 50 rides away from you on stage 1 and you think, oh, we got something very wrong. And then crashing in Napoli, I thought for sure this Grand Tour would be a bit of a write-off and I wasn't going to come out of it with anything. But at the end, the legs showed up when they needed to show up. So I'm very happy to be here.
G also happy to receive the blessing of Pope Leo XIV. For the first time in this event's history, the final stage was held partly inside Vatican City's walls.
All right, we'll leave it there this morning. Thanks very much, Scott.
You bet.
That's Scott Reguer with our Sports Live on CBC's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on the morning show. And 788-3093 if you need us with anything in traffic. Louise Bridge remains closed now until the end of July. That's the big top line on that. But you can walk over it, just not drive over it. Coming up, we're going to talk to Dave Phillips, senior climatologist for Environment Canada and Climate Change, about wildfires and also about the season ahead and the weather. Right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, we are waiting for the rain. It's 18 degrees. Forecast calls for a few showers beginning this morning and lasting through the afternoon. Widespread smoke again with a special air quality statement. You can smell the smoke in Winnipeg. Today's high is a cool one, much cooler than yesterday, 19. Airlifted to safety. People landing in the Pas over the weekend, escaping smoke and flames threatening their communities. CBC's Josh Crabb was in the Pas as the evacuees arrived.
You can see water bombers and a Hercules aircraft here to take evacuees from the Pas to Winnipeg. For the past several days, this airport has been a hub of activity with helicopters and airplanes landing with loads of evacuees. It's mainly been the Royal Canadian Air Force, but other agencies are assisting as well. This is where people from Puckatawagan are landing with nothing but a bag full of clothes and personal items. They've been telling me they're arriving tired, hungry, and stressed after waiting days to be rescued. There's tables of food and drinks for them to grab. Then they have to figure out where to go next, some even going as far as southern Ontario because the province is running out of hotel space. Many are being transported to southern Manitoba by train or bus. There's also a large-scale evacuation of Pimachikamak Cree Nation, northeast of where we are. The Armed Forces is using Hercules aircraft to move people from that community.
CBC reporter Josh Crabb in the Pas. Now, 25 active wildfires are burning. The city of Flin Flon remains under mandatory evacuation, and so far the fire there has not breached the perimeter of the city. There have been no fatalities, and no properties in Flin Flon have been damaged. Shelters have been set up for evacuees in Winnipeg, Thompson, Winkler, and Portage-la Prairie. And evacuees who don't have a place to stay are asked to go to the reception center at Billy Mosienko Arena. Evacuees from a Northern First Nation say they're grateful for help from another Indigenous community, Peguis First Nation is offering shelter to evacuees from Pimicikamak Cree Nation. Peguis itself has been evacuated multiple times over the years because of floods and wildfires. More than 150 people from Pimicikamak arrived in Peguis this weekend, including Lori Osborne and her family.
I had no idea that Peguis went through a bunch of floods, but I just want to say thank you to Peguis. I really appreciate them letting us Pimicikamak people in their home.
Now, some of the Pimicikamak evacuees are starting to arrive in southern Ontario. MKO, the Northern Chiefs Group, says the first plane carrying 47 evacuees arrived in Hamilton and then made their way to Niagara Falls by bus. They were given a hot meal and hotel rooms. 200 more evacuees arrived in the Niagara region last night, with up to 600 people arriving today. A number of local organizations are wrangling support for the wildfire evacuees. Over the weekend, several church groups, the Manitoba Islamic Association, the Manitoba Métis Federation, and Sikh aid societies held donation drives. Puckatawagan Band Councillor Kelly Linklater says people waited days to hours to be flown out of the community, and many faced a nearly 20-hour train ride to arrive in Winnipeg.
They left the community with just one bag. So like babies, of course, formula, diapers, hygiene products, clothes, baby clothes. That would definitely help. And food, hot food when they get here, some nutritious food.
You can hear more from Kelly Linklater coming up in the next hour of Information Radio. Canada's premiers are meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney in Saskatoon today. It is the first in-person meeting between the country's leaders since the federal election to pitch which major projects they think should get fast-tracked. The recent campaign saw Carney vow to slash federal approval times on major infrastructure projects considered in the national interest. They're also expected to discuss breaking down interprovincial trade barriers to make it easier to buy Canadian-made goods from other provinces and territories. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Thousands flooded downtown Winnipeg yesterday in a display of love and unity for the annual Pride Parade. Tara Morissette has been walking with her children in this event for years.
As a person who grew up with a non-supportive parent, it's very important to me to show my kids that I don't care. I don't care who you are, what you do, who you do. I love you infinitely.
Pride Winnipeg President Barry Karlenzig says this year was one of the largest Pride parades he has seen in his 15 years at the organization. More than 10,000 people took part yesterday. You can find more news updated throughout the day and the latest on the wildfire situation. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather, it's been interesting watching social media over the weekend, not just for, we're just hearing that beautiful story about Peguis welcoming evacuees, but also, Manitobans connecting with Manitobans in other parts. I know that further north in Fox Lake, there was a whole bunch of images on my social feeds from folks up there who were just watching the military aircraft come in, and just the different ways that all the communities are being affected, right? Either the sights and sounds of when we're in emergent situations. So, yeah, it's just a reminder of that, we're not that big a province, right?
No, we're not. And this certainly brings everyone together.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've just confirmed that we are going to talk to the mayor of Flin Flon. Now, he is right now on national news, on Newsnet. He's going to join us right after that interview. So he should be here for an update live at about 10 to 8. So stay tuned. We'll get the very latest. It was, of course, very tense and stressful for the 5,000 people out of that city watching this weekend what would happen. So stay tuned for that interview live on CBC. Right now, let's get the weather picture with Abby Adiyemi.
I raised the blind. I saw a bit of raindrops outside on the floor, so we still expect more of that to come and go. But we have smoky conditions and cloudy skies. This haze will definitely be sticking around in most parts of the province. Special air quality warning in effect for much of northern Manitoba, southern Manitoba, and even into southeastern Manitoba due to that fire that we're having in the province, and it's really drifting south, making the air really smoky and reducing visibility in a lot of areas. Winnipeg at this time 18 and mainly cloudy. Smoky skies. We do have a few light showers expected to come and go. The skies will start to clear as we get towards the lunch break. the smoke will remain in the air. We warm up close to 19 degrees today. Similar conditions in the Pembina Valley region. We're looking at 18 and 19 degrees in that part of the province at this time. Also expecting light showers that should end around the afternoon period. For that region, we'll see temperatures drop to 14 later today. In the Westman region, we're seeing Brandon at 13. That light rain shower still falling there. There's a slight risk of thunderstorm also in the forecast. The skies will become mainly cloudy after that, with local smoke still hanging around. Temperatures will get to 19 degrees. In Dauphin, we're seeing sunny conditions there with temperatures around 13 degrees. Today will bring mainly cloudy conditions with smoke, and we'll see highs near 20 degrees. Good morning, Gimli. You are at 16 at this time. The Interlake region is seeing widespread smoke, showers, and slight risk of thunderstorm in the forecast. That should taper off as you get close to the afternoon period. Also, leaving behind cloudy conditions. Highs will be around 20. In Thompson, we see temperatures around 12 degrees at this time with smoke in the air. We do have that special air quality statement still in place. Today will be a mix of sun and clouds and a slight chance of, rain showers this afternoon. High around 19-20 degrees. And then further north in Churchill, we have hazy conditions at 11. Churchill this morning is expecting a mix of sun and clouds. There's a good chance of showers in the afternoon period, some southwest winds, but it's going to feel breezy at some time, and we'll see highs around 16 degrees. So across board, we're looking at smoke lingering from north to south with hazy conditions and showers in the forecast.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get to what's happening in traffic. Sierra's just tied up with a guest, so we're going to give her a sec because she just seems to be making her way in here. Sierra Sanders directing the show today and covering our commute. It's been pretty quiet so far. Is anything developing?
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. I did mention earlier their Winnipeg Traffic Management Center was noting Osborne and Assiniboine Avenue. There were emergency vehicles in the northbound curb lane. I did look for an update. They have been cleared, so all northbound lanes are open. And also, as we've been mentioning, the Louise Bridge, the closure has been extended until the end of July. There's some more repairs that need to be done, but the sidewalk is open to pedestrians and cyclists. And then again, looking up north, Highway 280 is closed in both directions from Split Lake to Gillam because of fires in the area, but evacuees from the community of Split Lake can still travel to Gillam. Again, if there's something slowing you down, whether you're walking, biking, or driving, you can call the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much, Sierra. Well, Abby was just saying we have a bit of rain falling in Winnipeg right now, and in Manitoba, in other places as well. Brandon's got some rain, but we need more. It's something that is hard, actually, to forecast precipitation. But Dave Phillips is going to give it his best shot and also talk about how hot the month of May was. He's senior climatologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. Good morning, Dave.
Hey, good morning, Marcy. Nice to be with you. I wish it was under better circumstances.
Yeah, thanks for saying so. So I know it's tough to predict precipitation, Dave. I totally get that. But what are you hoping for in June in terms of when you look at the models? What are you thinking we're going to get?
Well, you're right, Marcy, about that. Hard to get it right today, let alone over a month and 3 months. And people ask you, well, what is the summer precipitation going to be like? Hey, we do well with temperature, and our models are good, and our history is good with that. We've got a certain skill. Precipitation is just, as you know, we've talked about it before, is really just hard to say. I mean, you could have raining in your front yard, but not your backyard. So it's much more difficult to get right. But the situation is it looks bleak. We're seeing certainly for June warmer than normal, and also the entire summer, June, July, August. I mean, my gosh, we've had almost too much summer already, and the precipitation side is also showing to either normal to below normal precipitation. Not a good combination. When it's warmer than normal, Marcy, as you know, you need more precipitation, not less. Now, the good news, the only strand of good news is that June on the prairies is the wettest month of the year. It just happens that way. You're moving your jet stream, your storm track, from a winter to a summer location. There's more active weather, and so typically you see that June will often have maybe almost 60% more precipitation than May on average. I'm speaking of average over a 30-year period, not this particular June. I can't get that, that. But in terms of most Junes, there is a tendency for more precipitation. Of course, we also see the beginning of the lightning situation, where it's quite about quarter of your annual lightning strikes come in June, and half of them in July. So that's the beginning of that season. So on one hand, it's good news, but some of that precipitation is brought to you by thunderstorms, which are okay. I mean, dry thunderstorms is what you don't want. You want rain with that thunderstorm to help to offset some of the lightning strikes.
Yeah. So if you do look at the month of May, because of course we all flipped the calendar this weekend, you don't have to tell Manitobans how hot it was and how unusual this is, but what are your numbers telling you about how we've compared to other years?
Well, Marcy, what really shocked me were you've had 6 days in Winnipeg, for example, where the temperature got above 30 degrees, and it got to 37. I've said to other people, I don't think Winnipeg will see a warmer temperature this summer than what they had in the early part of the second week of May. I mean, that was just extraordinary. And then, of course, 4 days later, you had a risk of frost. So it was really a bubble of heat that came northward, but it was absolutely broke every record you could even think of. So again, on average, you might get 1 day in a May with above 30. Well, you had 6 of those. So that gave you the sense of what the month was. And then, of course, it was just dry. I mean, up in Flin Flon, they've had 18 days almost 3 weeks of not a drop of precipitation. And in April and May together, they've had maybe a quarter of their precipitation. And even the rain coming through now, I mean, good news today, it started raining. It's been raining. It rained for 3 hours in Brandon. Winnipeg has started raining at the top of the hour. It might go through to noon. And you see when it rains, the visibility increases dramatically because of the rain. And but it's not the kind of rain that you need. You want that rain that you got during the long weekend in May. That was really a godsend, where you got lots of precipitation in the southwestern part of the province. But this rain coming through today, it's not going to rain. It could rain as far as Gimli and Dauphin, but nothing northward. There's not a drop of rain expected until possibly the weekend in the fire zone of Flin Flon. So, hey, it's just been too hot, too dry for too long, and of course we see the consequences of it.
Just as a last brief question, because of course we're so living in a media and I acknowledge that, but I do want to ask, just for those who are wondering, because you put it out already, what kind of a summer can Manitobans expect? I know you had your forecast out, is what I'm referring to.
We did. We've sent it out. And the thing is, Marcy, it's the everybody is saying the same thing. I mean, you always feel more confident in what you're saying as the summer is going to be, or any season, if in fact you've got the other weather services, whether private services or the United States or Europe, and they're all saying the same thing. In Western Canada, it looks warm. I mean, there'll be moments where it'll be cool and it'll be refreshing, but the general pattern, the personality of winter right through to Labor Day looks warmer than normal. And as I've said, Marcy, you need more precipitation when it's warmer like that. And precipitation looks, the best I could say is hey, maybe it's going to be normal but the tendency tends to be in the west. It looks like it's going to be drier than normal. So there are going to be a lot of issues going forward. But one of these things you can't forecast in a seasonal forecast like this is the severe weather. So some of those rain gushes or flooding rains, hey, they may happen, but there's nothing on the radar horizon right now to suggest that will be the case.
All right. Thank you very much for your time today.
Okay, Marcy, bye-bye.
That is Dave Phillips with Environment and Climate Change Canada, speaking to us live on CBC. Stay tuned. We're reaching out now and expect to have the Mayor of Flin Flon on with us this half hour.
They challenged Manitoba high school students to champion the environment with a video. Now you can see the results. The Climate Change Connections Youth Video Challenge, sponsored by CBC. Get inspired by the winning videos from River East Collegiate, St. John's Ravenscourt, and Louis Riel Arts and Technology by visiting cbc.ca/Manitoba/community to watch.
Whether you're hanging out or out on the move, stay in the know with CBC Listen. The cost of living with Paul Havershrud goes beyond facts and figures.
Real estate is the 800-pound gorilla of Canada's economy.
And What on Earth with Laura Lynch explores the climate change crisis, problems and solutions.
What happened that made you start to think and see climate change differently?
The cost of living and What on Earth. Available now on CBC Listen.
Time right now is 13 minutes to 8. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us this Monday morning in Winnipeg, live from Winnipeg. Of course, broadcasting all across Manitoba, where we have 17,000 people out of their homes or on the way to being out of their homes. We do have a little bit of rain in Winnipeg right now. As you just heard from Dave Phillips, though, we've been in dry conditions. Well, let's look at Flin Flon, that city of 5,000 people. Dave just said had 6 weeks with not a drop of rain. So a dire situation there, and hopefully those things will change this week. It wasn't rain, though, setting into the beginning of the weekend that was the worry. The worry was how the wind was going to shift. And so over the weekend, the people of Flin Flon were bracing for the worst. The wildfire at one point only 400 meters away from the city. 5,000 people evacuated, could only watch from a distance and hope for the best. And that includes the mayor, Flin Flon Mayor George Fontaine, who also had to leave the city. He's currently staying at his son's house. He's with us this morning live. Good morning.
Good morning.
Where's your son's house? Where are you staying?
In North Kildonan.
Okay, so you're here in Winnipeg. Yeah.
I am in Winnipeg, yes.
Yeah. So, Mayor Fontaine, I just want to back up for a moment because, the top line here is that no structures have been affected in Flin Flon from what we understand. But I want to back you up to Friday because there was a moment where you actually were helping people brace for the worst. You were really watching and saying wind could dramatically affect what happened in Flin Flon. So what's the news out of what happened and how lucky were you that the Mother Nature didn't shift that wind?
I think we're absolutely the luckiest people in the world that didn't happen then. But we still don't have a guarantee that won't happen in the future. So I don't want to, I don't want to raise false hopes here. I'm getting reports. It's traveling around. There are people, or there are areas outside of our community where the flames are traveling around. They're trying to do whatever they can to aim them and change them and that sort of thing. But the fact that we haven't had any structural damage yet doesn't mean that we won't. And I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm just saying it is fluid. It's changing all the time. And each time I get a result, it's different from the next. And so far, we have dodged a bullet. And I hope that we can continue to do that. I want our community to come back and be as vibrant as it always was. But keep your prayers going in that direction because there's no guarantees.
We have to manage expectations. What was it like for you to leave? Obviously, so many people left ahead of you, and then you were left behind with only the most emergent officials. What was that moment like for you?
It's surreal, but actually we hung in there because we did have one last busload that we knew of at the time. And so we decided to do it and accompany them down to Winnipeg to make sure that, they're people that were out of their environment and a bus driver unaccustomed to heading to the city. So he was, at least it gave us something else to concentrate on while you're going out rather than just sit there and ponder, bad things.
How close, just to be clear with some of the details then, how close is the fire to town right now?
Well, okay, I'm sorry. You'll have to go to the regular media to get that actual answer. Oh, geez, my dog. Okay.
You okay? Is he okay? I've done live radio with my dog. He almost knocked me off the air one morning. Yeah?
No,
okay, good.
That's fine.
Good. No worries.
Okay, so repeat your question, please. That was a little...
You were saying, obviously, we'll look at our maps to look at how fire specifically, how close the fire is to the city of Flin Flon this morning. But over the weekend, what was the trajectory of that? As you said, you're not out of the woods. You might have dodged a bit of a bullet. But when you look at what happened with the fire over the weekend, can you explain to us that?
Yeah, what the trajectory as I saw was that it was, and as it was explained to me, it was headed straight for our airport. We had to abandon our airport for a while because it was too dangerous to be there. and then emergency staff moved back in and got it operating because we just absolutely need that. But so it's been very close. And my understanding is the airport's still there, all that sort of thing. But how close to the airport? Very close. I mean, across the highway, basically, from the pictures that I can see. So frighteningly close. And the smoke and that sort of thing makes it almost impossible to do anything with it. And from the other side, from Saskatchewan, I can't give you a definitive answer, but I know that there are some real dangers because it's a fire that's split into all kinds of directions and keeps coming back from different sides. So from the Saskatchewan side, I understand there's still some danger there. And of course, we abut a town of Creighton, and it could come from that direction too. So this is being watched by several communities very closely because it's still moving around and it's still up to the winds and it's still dry.
One of your updates had said that you lost 12 hours of firefighting time over the weekend. What did you mean by that?
I didn't say it, but my deputy mayor did, and so did. What I mean by that all the progress they made in that day trying to stop and turn things, one good gust of wind, and that undoes that, and undid that in a hurry. That's how I understand it. So it is with those winds, when they start, and, depending where they come from, whatever progress, it takes a long time to make progress, but it doesn't take much time to damage it.
What have firefighters been doing to keep the fire at bay? I mean, I'm seeing images of literally you're standing on a building and holding a hose and trying to hold a line. What's staying with you about how they're fighting this?
Okay, so when I left, I took a little tour with my emergency coordinator, and we went by, for example, the bulk fuel station, which is right on the edge of town. That's where it was the closest, and it was threatening that bulk fuel station and our water treatment. So we had trucks out there, and they were either pumping or being prepared to pump whenever the flames came so close, because that's a very dangerous situation with all that fuel and that sort of a thing around. Don't know what would happen if that ever went, but they did. They're doing an incredible amount of work. And when I drove by the highway prior to that, I could see water spraying in the air about as far as I could imagine them being able to blow water to try and keep that area dampened down and protect that. So, they're in individual areas where they think they can make a difference. They're going in and they're pushing and trying to protect as much of the overall asset as they can. But, their actual methods of doing it, that's up to the fire people. And I'm not right there,
Yep. Your city's been battling misinformation online. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, that needing to be careful with what you're seeing. Can you tell us what's happening there when it comes to Flin Flon?
Okay, so the one thing that was concerning me, and I just mentioned it on CBC National, was this. So you get Facebook stories, for example, talking about injuries or talking about different things. And so those things come out, and I don't know where they come from, but they were inaccurate. They were totally false. And so I can't comment on how that stuff happens because I try to stay away from that. But in the meantime, we have families whose loved ones are there fighting fires and in dangerous situations. And so, these conjecture type stories that come out are very damaging to, the psyche of the people who are sitting there, pondering their future. So please don't do that.
Remind us, Mayor Fontaine, if people are wanting information about Flin Flon, correct information about what is happening there. Is it the Facebook page they should go to, the website? Where should people go? Especially now that they're all out.
That's right. We have a communications coordinator, and that's going to be who's in charge of putting out what it is as a public statement. I mean, that's the kind of place that I'm getting from him and my emergency coordinator who feeds her. That's where I'm getting my information. So, go to that, and then you'll know. And then, of course, the CBC, hopefully you people are tracking the same kind of thing and making it for public. So stay on real official news lines, not on some chat line, because, even amongst some fairly well-intentioned people, some things are being said that are just inaccurate and totally unnecessary.
So the City of Flin Flon is the name of your Facebook page, I know. That's the official one. Let me ask you this. Have you heard any amazing stories that you want to share? I mean, the stories of help, or help or heroes, I always call it in times of this, right? People coming together, or firefighters doing incredible things. What have you been hearing over the weekend or reading?
Well, I'm not getting individual stories, except that I've got people always volunteering to try and come in. How can I help? How can I help? So they're coming in. Our local guys are doing whatever it is they're doing. And it's not the first time I've seen, and not our local guys, as well as all the volunteers who come from all over the province and made themselves available to do these things. And I don't have an individual story, except that my own staff, when we had to call the evacuation, and they stuck around, and we had 500 or 600 people in our community hall getting them ready. And, we ended up gathering 17 buses. And so people who had people had their vehicles. They started and in such an orderly fashion just kept moving. I called the town of the Paw and I called their mayor, and he just set into action. He called his people, and by the time our people were down, there's a story for you. By the time our people were down, they were prepared. They had traffic control. They had people at the OCN had set up a base for some of our people. They held some of our people so we could have an initial withdrawal of people that didn't take so long, so we could pull them out. And we ended up getting 600 vulnerable people out of there, by the end of that night. It was a late night. Like I said, 17 buses going on, and then we had 5,000 people at least evacuated from our community, and that doesn't include the Saskatchewan communities next to us. And the routes that they had to come out were limited, so most of them had to come out through Manitoba. And then off and on, number 10 has been blocked. It's blocked again, so they only had one road to go down. So it's been, everybody did it in an orderly fashion, but the people who've, managed to organize, and we're not planning this. This has happened within.
It's just happening. Thank you very much for being with us and making time for us, Mayor Fontaine. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
In Winnipeg now, the mayor of Flin Flon, George Fontaine, with the latest saying, hoping that people won't take false hope from what happened on the weekend, saying it's very much still an emergent situation as firefighters fight back the flames, but no structures have been damaged, as you've been hearing in the news in Flin Flon. And he did say, quote, "You feel a bit like this weekend they dodged a bullet." But we'll see what goes on next here. Let's go to Heather Wells for our headlines.
Well, one First Nation that has faced repeated evacuations from floods and fire in the past is giving back to those who are now fleeing. Peguis First Nation welcoming more than 150 evacuees from Pimachikamak over the weekend. Other evacuees from Pimachikamak are making their way to southern Ontario and are being put up in hotels in Niagara Falls. I'll be back with more news at 8:30.
Air quality is an issue in Winnipeg and in all of your fire zones. 18 degrees, some light rain. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about how you talk to the kids about crisis.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
The Canadian musician Melanie Fiona rose to stardom in the early 2000s because of her powerful voice. Then she lost her voice, literally and figuratively. After a decade-long break from music, Melanie will be here to tell you why she's back.
No more fighting.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is telling Canadian premiers that he will pump the economy by fast-tracking big infrastructure projects. Experts say that building big things fast is easier said than done. They'll tell us what's needed to make that actually happen. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Mark Carney faces his first test of national consensus building today. The new Prime Minister is in Saskatchewan meeting with provincial and territorial premiers for the first time. A big focus of their time will be on what Carney calls nation-building projects. Rafi Bujikanian has more.
I'm looking forward to finding some common ground. We've had a couple of nice texts.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has not been shy about what she's looking for. Faster approval for pipeline projects crisscrossing Canada, including one to the west coast.
And I think that there's a spirit of collaboration.
There has certainly been the talk. Prime Minister Mark Carney has spoken for months now of nation-building projects that kickstart the Canadian economy, setting high hopes and expectations for his first meeting with premiers since he got elected. New Brunswick's Susan Holt says investors would be interested in new energy projects.
I think the case is looking better and better as we see the demands globally and the constraints in supply.
Quebec Premier François Legault, though, is still looking to be convinced. Some of the popular opposition to a pipeline through the province has subsided in recent months, but he says that's not all that matters.
If there's a project, we're ready to look at it if it goes through Quebec territory, but we'll need to have economic impact, positive ones for Quebec.
It may not be the only point of disagreement.
This is a difficult country to govern.
Goldie Hyder is the president of the Business Council of Canada.
It's a country, it's not a corporation. You can't just tell everybody what to do. You have to consult.
Some Indigenous communities have already voiced concerns regarding legislation Carney's government could table as early as this week about major project approvals. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The FBI says it is investigating an act of terrorism. At least 8 people were injured during a demonstration in Boulder, Colorado. Police say a man used a makeshift flamethrower and hurled an incendiary device into a group that had gathered to show support for Israeli hostages in Gaza. The CBC's Richard Madden joins me now. Richard, what more do we know?
Yeah, federal and local authorities continue to investigate this attack that happened during an afternoon march yesterday in support for the Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. Now, a few dozen people were peacefully walking down a busy pedestrian mall in Boulder, Colorado, when a man allegedly started yelling at them and then tossed bottles filled with some kind of liquid. Here's the FBI's Mark McCallick describing what happened next.
Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. The suspect was heard to yell "Free Palestine" during the attack.
Now, authorities say there are at least 8 victims between 52 to 88 years old. One of them is a Holocaust survivor. All are suffering very serious burns. Now, this attack follows the deadly shooting less than 2 weeks ago here in D.C. of 2 Israeli embassy staffers outside a museum. Investigators say that suspect also yelled "Free Palestine" after his arrest.
So, Richard, now then, what are authorities then saying about the suspect?
Yeah, police have identified him as 45-year-old Mohammed Solomon. Reports say he's an Egyptian national who authorities believe acted alone. Now, the White House says President Trump has been briefed on the attack and that the suspect should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
CBC's Richard Madden for us in Washington. Thanks, Richard.
You bet.
There's little expectation any breakthrough in Russian-Ukraine peace talks will take place in Istanbul. This is the second round of direct talks. The 2 sides remain far apart. Ahead of today's meeting, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused the Kremlin of doing everything it can to ensure the talks are fruitless. Philip Marks has the latest.
Ukraine's defense minister and a senior aide to Russian President Vladimir Putin will lead the talks in Istanbul. Discussions last month yielded few breakthroughs besides a sizable prisoner swap between the 2 nations. Kyiv is requesting an unconditional ceasefire while Moscow insists Ukraine must drop its ambition to join the NATO alliance, among other demands. US President Donald Trump continues to insist peace is possible, but has also threatened to walk away from negotiations, warned Russia it may face further economic sanctions, and criticized the attitude of Ukraine's leadership. Meanwhile, the fighting continues. Ukraine's intelligence services conducted audacious drone attacks on military sites some thousands of kilometers inside Russia. They targeted long-range nuclear-capable bombers. The surprise attacks had 3 intended effects, Ukraine's former Deputy Defense Minister Volodymyr Havrilov told the BBC.
Reducing Russia's ability to deliver strategic missile strikes against Ukraine. Second is raising the morale and confidence of the Ukrainian military and society here, which is very, very important now. And the last one, demoralizing the Russian leadership and population, which is also very important during this conflict.
Ukrainian President Zelensky called it a brilliant operation to target equipment used to strike Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry acknowledged the attack succeeded in at least 2 regions, damaging some aircraft without inflicting casualties. Willem Mark, CBC News, London.
We'll build a fighting force that is more integrated, more ready, more lethal than ever.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer describing his plans for the UK military. He'll be releasing the government's Strategic Defence Review later today. It's expected to inject billions of dollars into defence spending to achieve warfighting readiness.
Every part of society, every citizen of this country has a role to play. Because we have to recognise that things have changed. In the world of today, the front line, if you like, is here. The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate, and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War.
Starmer says he cannot ignore that Russia poses a serious threat, adding his goal is to promote peace through strength. Poland has elected a new president. Right-wing candidate Karol Nawrocki narrowly winning the second-round vote by just over 50%. He beat out his Liberal rival, Rafał Trzaskowski, an ally of Prime Minister Donald Tusk. This runoff election revealed the deep divisions in Poland. Nawrocki ran on a conservative platform that is skeptical of the European Union and opposes Ukraine joining NATO. His opponent pushed a more progressive platform, embracing closer ties with the EU. Although mostly ceremonial, the presidential role has the power to veto new legislation, which could derail Prime Minister Tusk's policy agenda. A large solar field in Alberta is generating more than just electricity this summer. It is also producing eggs and honey. The aim is to keep farming the land in some way while generating power. Here's more from Kyle Bax.
The Strathmore solar field east of Calgary is beginning to resemble a hobby farm. Amongst the rows of solar panels, there are sheep and pigs, and now chickens and bees.
Our vision is essentially farming under every panel.
Farmer Jana Greer is hired to manage the land and keep the vegetation low. For her, the massive solar field is an opportunity to experiment.
We wanted to kind of prove the concept that we can raise more protein and more local food per acre.
Mixing farming and solar power could become more common across the country. Alberta and Ontario have rules requiring solar operators to include some type of agriculture depending on the quality of the land. Here, the chickens lay eggs in a mobile, self-propelled chicken coop that moves between the rows of solar panels. The roaming pasture barns are developed by Uco Robotics, a Manitoba startup. Co-founder Daniel Badiou.
If it does work, I think there's some great applications throughout North America for sure, because this is underutilized agricultural land.
It's unconventional and a work in progress, but it's where the solar industry is going. Wade Huscher is with Capital Power, which owns the solar field.
This is the way of the future. I think this is partnerships that all solar providers should be looking at doing.
The company is beginning a 10-year testing program to better understand how the animals are impacting soil conditions. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Strathmore, Alberta.
The Canadian Screen Award goes to The Apprentice.
The best in Canadian film, television, and digital storytelling was celebrated last night, and The Apprentice was a big winner. The film, based on Donald Trump's early career, won Best Motion Picture at the Canadian Screen Awards. The Ontario shot film won 5 awards in total, including Best Performance for Lead Actor, Sebastian Stan. Law & Order Toronto Criminal Intent won for Best Drama Series. CBC Radio-Canada also walked away with some hardware, 42 awards in total. CBC News won 7 of them, including Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault for Best National News Anchor. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio, live on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, and on YouTube. Stay with us. We have fire updates for you this half hour. One of them is going to come from Kelly Linklater, who's one of the Pucketchewagan Vice Chief and Councillor up in that community. He's going to tell us what's the latest is going on, who's been left back there to make sure things stay safe in community, and the message for people this morning. So we'll get the latest on that. If you were with us before 8, we got an update from the Mayor of Flin Flon. He still says no structures have been damaged in the city. And he's holding on to hope. And there's some light rain in Winnipeg, which we welcome here. And there's some rain in Brandon right now as well. So in addition to those updates, we're going to talk about something else. And it is as wildfires continue to threaten many parts of the province. What about the emotional toll on families who are displaced, specifically children, teenagers, babies? How do you approach the conversations with the teens and the kids about the devastation? We're going to get into that as well. Right now, for the very latest across Manitoba, Heather Wells is here live with our news headlines.
Good morning. Well, the city of Flin Flon has so far been spared in this wildfire fight. On Friday, you may recall Mayor George Fontaine worried his city might face catastrophe. But even though no structures to this point have been damaged by the fire burning just outside of Flin Flon, Fontaine says things could still change.
They're still in the same situation. It's a time bomb.
And Fontaine says it's been gratifying to see, even while his community is scattered everywhere, they still come together and check on one another. He says that part makes him feel thankful. Now, wildfire evacuees fleeing Puckatawagan were taken by helicopter to the Paw over the weekend. A Chinook helicopter flying 40 people. Those people will then make their way to Winnipeg. Other evacuees are also headed to other towns like Portage-la-Prairie and Winkler, some even as far off as Niagara Falls in southern Ontario. We'll hear the latest coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
So by the numbers, we do have as of 25 wildfires burning throughout the province. I know World Report's been saying 20. Our number in Manitoba here local is 25. And we know that 10 of them are still out of control, as you've been hearing. We have active evacuations and we have closed parks in a number of communities. So mandatory evacuation orders continue in Sheridan, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, Puck, Pimicikawack, Takasquiac, as well as Cross Lake and Cranberry Portage. And then in Flin Flon, of course, we know the fire there out of control. Nopaming Bird River fire still out of control. We keep using the term hectares. I'm just going to give you something to understand that. In Winnipeg, the city of Winnipeg, the whole city is 46,000 hectares. So imagine that the fire in Nopaming Bird River, for example, is 4 times the size of Winnipeg. So that's kind of a good image to think about when you're thinking about these volunteers that are trying to push back the flames. Just a monumental task. 211 remains the line for any evacuees for information about the fires. And you're reminded also to make sure that you're registered with the Red Cross, wherever you've landed here in the South. All right, 8:13 is the time right now. It's time to look at what's coming in the forecast and what's happening right now with Abby Adiami.
And the smoke from that fire lingers from the north to the south. Conditions ranging from hazy with showers to smoky conditions. Right now, Winnipeg under smoky conditions, 18 degrees. The smoke and haze is drifting from the fires burning. It's going to make the air quality really, really worse. So you might want to take care if you're spending time outside. As the day goes on, the skies will stay mostly cloudy. A few light showers spotted here and there. Those showers should end by the afternoon period. Then we'll see some clearing. Highs will be around 19. Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, we're looking at smoky conditions. Also, temperatures between 15 and 18 at this time. Light showers moving through that region. The skies will stay mostly cloudy and we'll see highs close to 20 degrees. Up north, the powerful from Thompson Churchill. Air is also smoky and hazy this morning. Temperatures around 11 and 12 degrees. A mix of sun and clouds, and the forecast and highs would be between 16 and 20 degrees. But right now, Winnipeg, 18 degrees and smoky outside.
Sierra Sanders has our traffic update.
Good morning. Still pretty quiet on the commuter line. I guess the big headline this morning is the Louise Bridge closure being extended until the end of July. That was announced on Friday from the city. There's some more repairs that need to be done, but the sidewalk is open to pedestrians and cyclists, just no cars there on that road. Again, up north, Highway 280 is closed in both directions from Split Lake to Gillam because of the fires in the area, but evacuees from the community of Split Lake can still travel to Gillam. And one more little note, this is coming from Abby, who is very adamant about southbound and northbound lanes on the Abinogi-Mi'kmaq overpass. There is construction going on there, and it's expected to last until November. So settle in there, folks. A little bit of a closure there for a while. So you can expect delays in that area for a while. But if there's anything else slowing you down, whether you're walking, biking, or driving, you can call the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
It is time now to look more closely at what's been happening to our neighbors, our Manitoba neighbors up in Puckatawagan. So at last check over the weekend, there were still people trapped in the community. A massive evacuation effort was underway in Puckatawagan Cree Nation. A fire had shut down the airstrip there. Now, that was just temporarily. And then some double-rotor Chinooks from the Canadian Armed Forces were able to land and get people out. So many evacuees, as we've been telling you in the news, and if you've been following this through the weekend, are in Winnipeg, they're in the Paw, they're in Portage-la-Prairie, and they're in Brandon. Kelly Linklater, though, is here in studio with us in Winnipeg, and we're grateful. Vice Chief and Councillor for Puckatawagan. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks.
So how many people do you think are still left back there this morning as of when we're speaking now?
Not including the, there's about 30 members at EMO that stay behind, plus the firefighters to ensure the safety of the community infrastructure. And as late as last night, maybe a Chinook load, and then So, but it depends on how the weather conditions, the smoke conditions are up there. I haven't had an update as of right now.
Yeah.
So probably one more load and that's it. Everybody will be out.
Okay. So there's 30 people there right now,
Mhm.
plus there's people waiting to get on a Chinook still,
Right.
you believe.
Yes.
And so you figure once that last Chinook goes this morning, that will be everyone that needs to be out.
That'll be everybody that needs to come out, yeah. And then there'll be supplies sent in for the ones that are staying to keep an eye on, like I said, the infrastructure, the pets, and
The 30 people that are staying. How many people then are waiting to get on that last Chinook out this morning? Is it hundreds of people left still?
No,
No.
not even. No.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe 100. Yeah.
Okay. So that's still, it's not going to be a full Chinook taking that last number of people. What's it like for you right now? Being out of community and everybody being all over the place and displaced. Obviously, it's unfortunately not your first time with this, but maybe to this scale.
Well, we've been through this in 22 as well. The whole community was evacuated, as well as 1989.
That's
the whole
right.
community was evacuated, but the population from 1989 to now is probably doubled. So there was more efforts to get everybody out, and this time around, the fire was right on the doorsteps of the community. So, especially on a few nights ago, where the wind shifted towards the community, and the majority of the community members were still there. So there was a lot of panic, a lot of worry, and of course on our side, we were we were helpless to assist. So,
as you told me off air, the current population numbers are about 4,400 members of Pucktawagan, and then about 2,400
2,400
living
on reserve. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what you're most worried about damage and such. The rail line is a big concern, I understand.
Right now, so the fire's still raging, right? And but that's not once that moves on, we don't know when that's going to move on. And then KRC, our railroad company, Keewatin Railway, the employees will go down the track and assess the damage, how much track has been burnt. So we haven't even gotten there yet. So that could take a few days, and of course them to actually go down the track and replace the ties, the tracks that have been burnt. So I can maybe a couple of weeks, and then once that's done, then the hydro has to go in and assess the damage on the poles and then the wires. To date, I think there's 30 poles that need to be replaced. So that's going to take some time. Maybe 10 days, maybe 2 weeks for that. So I think we're going to be here for a few weeks anyway.
What have been the biggest challenges with the evacuations of the people from Pucktawagan so far?
So once they get here, because the challenges, because there's 17,000, not only from Puck, like in
overall,
in 22, I think it was just Puck that got evacuated. I'm not aware of any other communities at that time.
17,000
it wasn't 17,000.
Looking for help in space, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now, that's the issue. Red Cross is having a tough time finding accommodations for community members. So CNC has taken it upon themselves to look around to find accommodations for our community, and we did that 2 years ago. We assisted in accommodating in the tune of $2 million, like from band support.
And what did that support? Did that support people able to find paid accommodation? Like it's not always a space; it's having paid.
Yeah, it's
paid hotel rooms or something.
Yeah,
that
the
might
paid
be
hotels
open.
room.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're trying to get some. Are you trying again to look at getting some funding in place so people can go ahead and make? Yeah.
Yes.
So you said, you can't know how long. None of us can, right? Mother Nature here,
Yeah.
wind, and it's so volatile right now. What's your message to the people from the community, though, that might be listening right now that are displaced and wondering what's going on at home and then feeling the stress of all this?
Yeah, like I said, they've been through this before, so they know. They've been commenting, we've been through this. Once give it a few days, things are going to start to settle, and then we're going to start settling into the communities. They're going to start settling into like Niagara Falls here, of course, and Brandon, Portage la Prairie. So it's just a matter of going through the stress, through the worry of where they're going to stay, and finding families. So that's another thing we're dealing with. We're trying to connect families, keep them together, bring them together, so that the stay out here will be a little more easy.
Yeah, so maybe people from Puck that might have family in Winnipeg or in Port Jim Brown, you're trying to make sure people can
get
connect
together,
with their own.
Connect, yeah.
What do you need most right now from the federal and provincial governments, and where have they where have they missed the boat here, do you think?
Because it's an emergency, you're going to obviously we're going to miss some. I think one of the missteps that might have happened for us is that did happen for us was they waited till the fire was right at the border of our community there, and it totally freaked everybody out. If there's a pending fire coming into the community, maybe expedite the process. Let's get moving. This is serious, and let's not wait around and freak everybody out. And I know the premier mentioned a couple of days ago that requested the hotels in Winnipeg and the surrounding communities maybe open up their communities, hold out on the conferences, and so we can accommodate the 17,000 not only for Matthias Colomb band members, for the other communities that are affected as well.
Yeah. So already some early lessons learned, but as you said, you appreciate lots to look at after.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right now, we'll just try to keep the community safe.
Keep the community safe, and looking, if I mean, in the future, in terms of infrastructure. We're an isolated community, and I think for safety reasons, communications reasons, because we rely on satellite, and I think I think the safety and communications would be improved if the province, the feds would support infrastructure like a cell phone. And a few community members have even suggested maybe a highway into the community if we're able to have a highway there, maybe we can move people in and out, but that's still not,
Where should people go this morning, Councillor, if they want information on Puckatawagan specifically? Do you guys have an active Facebook page or a phone number, or should they just be following the regular emergency channels?
Just the regular right now. We do have an office. MKO is assisting us. Everybody knows MKO as well as AMC. We have our own community members working out there right now, visiting. We had a staff about 20 or 30 from the last evacuation, so everybody knows who the contact. So they're already going out to we're community members, and they're visible, and they recognize them. And if they need assistance, going to the store, finding hygiene products, diapers for their kids.
So you have people here that are helping evacuees on the ground here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also we have that as well.
So watch for those folks. Yes. Thank you very much for being here. I'm sorry for the stress that your community is going through.
Thank you.
It is Kelly Linklater, Vice Chief and Councillor for Puckatawagan Cree Nation. Well, speaking of stress, let's turn our attention to the younger people, shall we? Teens, babies. For many grade 12 students in Manitoba, let's remember there's supposed to be a time to celebrate grad and get ready for all of it. But now you might be not home. You might be in a hotel. You might be really worried, obviously, what's happening to your home. CBC's Joanne Levasseur recently spoke with Amber Marcellet. She's a 17-year-old student from Puckatawagan. She was among the many evacuees who were staying in Peguis.
I don't know. I'm more worried about prom. I'm worried that prom will get delayed and canceled. I didn't even get my dress yet. We're just being evacuated and stuff. We're not really, setting up yet. It's on the 16th, and I'm just hoping, we can still make it back. And, we don't even know how long we're going to be here for, if we're going to be here long term. But, yeah, I've been hearing rumors up to 2 weeks, a month. I don't know.
How big a deal would it be to miss prom for you?
I think pretty big because, I've been excited for it. I finished school early, so, it's the only thing I've been looking forward to is prom and grad, and, a big moment for me. And I'm supposed to go out for college, but now I'm worried I won't be able to go out first semester.
Well, experts say there are ways parents can handle the conversations with their kids, even though this is an unprecedented time in Manitoba when it comes to all these fires burning at the same time. Scott Erickson's here to help us through some of the conversations that might look like. He's a Winnipeg therapist. He works closely with kids. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So how deeply can the impact be on a young person when they're living through a crisis like this where there's so much uncertainty?
Yeah, it can be pretty serious. It will vary, of course, with from kid to kid and family to family. But yeah, no, pretty serious. As the young woman that was interviewed about missing the trauma, it's big, right?
And how do children and teens process the kind of trauma compared to adults? Like, what will that feel like for a teen? Is it all anxious feelings, or what does it look like?
It can be anxious feelings. It can be a lot of different feelings. In the same way as I talk to adults, like you don't necessarily know what your feelings are going to be. We don't know what kids' feelings are going to be, and they may surprise us in the same way that some of our feelings may surprise us. One of the biggest things I like to say to people is that if your feelings happen, and you can't, you don't have that much control over them. But to acknowledge them and to let yourself know that they make sense and give yourself permission to say to yourself as a parent that if I'm mad, if I'm afraid, if I'm uncertain, that makes sense in the situation. But also to help your kids to know that, if you're afraid, if you're upset, if you're worried, those feelings make sense in the situation, to give some permission for that.
I know that coming out of Flin Flon, people were talking a lot of emotions. Not Flin Flon, Lactabani last week. People were talking about the unexpected emotions that would come up. They thought they were sort of, okay, handling things well. And this is through their times of uncertainty, of course. And the folks we were talking to had lost their neighbors. They died in the fires. But then they would say that all of a sudden they'd be crying, like unrelated to anything, out of the blue, that all of a sudden they would have like an emotion come up. What are we doing in ourselves when that happens? If we delayed a reaction and then when we find a safe moment, maybe that comes out, what happens to people?
It could be. It's actually hard to say. People are different, right? That sounds like there's a good chance that it may have been a delay. And also our emotions can surprise us, right? Sometimes emotions can be delayed by weeks or by 5 minutes, but yeah.
What do you watch for in the kids if you're worried about them? And then how do you console them if they're upset about missing things like grad?
Good to watch for when kids will often tell you that you're worried. And of course, parents know their kids, right? And when you see them withdrawn, when you see them not enjoying things they usually would enjoy, which they may not have those things when they've been evacuated. When you see them, obviously, some things like crying, but even asking a lot of questions, particularly if they're asking the same questions repeatedly, those are some of the things to watch for. But yeah, knowing your kids is the most important thing to be aware of.
Can be a fine line, right? Because, of watching the news, seeing the images on social media, people are worried about their homes. How important is it to have conversations about all of this with your kids, given that even if you're trying to keep them in your sort of bubble of hope and safety, maybe they're going to be seeing, the fact that this is a crisis?
Yeah, it's really important because they know, right? Their kids are really perceptive, even at a very young age. And they know that something is happening. So if you try to pretend that something isn't happening, they're going to be making up stories in their heads that are going to be more worrisome than what the reality is. And so finding age-appropriate ways to talk to them about what is going on, but also contrasting that with one of the things I really like that I learned from somebody, a therapist who was talking in the LA wildfires with parents there, was things that we know and things that we don't know. We don't know, for instance, when we're going to be able to go home, but we do know that the firefighters are working really hard. We do know that we will go home someday. Also things that are different and things that are the same. It's different that we're actually sleeping in a room with a whole bunch of people, or we're sleeping in a hotel, but it's the same that I'm going to read you the same story at night tonight, or I'm going to sing the same song to you, or it's the same that we are together, even if we're with a lot of other people that we don't know.
Thank you very much for leaving us with some strategies this morning as we approach this with our families. I really appreciate you having on.
You're welcome, Marcy. Glad to.
That is Scott Erickson, on with us on Information Radio, Winnipeg therapist. He works with children. We can tell you that in the traffic situation, Louise Bridge is closed till the end of July, and we had a reopening that I will tell you about right after your news. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's 18 degrees and we are waiting for the rain. Showers are expected to begin this morning and then end this afternoon. Still widespread smoke out there. Winnipeg is under a special air quality statement again today. Much cooler than yesterday. A high today of 19. Hundreds of people needed airlifts out of Puckatawagan as that community is threatened by a wildfire. The evacuation of Matthias Colomb Cree Nation continued into last evening. CBC's Josh Crabb is in the paw.
You can still smell the smoke, but the skies are clearer today in the Pas after poor visibility grounded evacuation flights to Matthias Colombe Cree Nation. Strong winds drove smoke into the air, which made it difficult to see. The airport here has been a hub of activity for the past several days, with airplanes and helicopters from the Royal Canadian Air Force and other agencies landing with loads of evacuees from the community also known as Puckatawagan. They've been arriving with nothing but a bag full of clothes and some personal items. They've been telling me they're tired, hungry, and stressed after waiting days to be rescued. Some are being taken as far as southern Ontario because Manitoba is running out of hotel space. There's also a large-scale evacuation of Pimachikamak Cree Nation. Hercules aircraft are being used to move people from that First Nation as well. The Canadian Armed Forces says so far it has evacuated more than 2,600 people from their homes. Josh Crabb, CBC News, The Pas.
Now, some of those evacuees could end up at a soccer complex on Leela Avenue here in Winnipeg, and that's where CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is this morning. Megan?
Yes, I'm at the Winnipeg Soccer Federation North. This is on Leela, and there's about 600 people from both Puckatawagan and Pimachikamak. This morning, they're waking up. Some are saying that they're just relieved to be in a place where they are safe. Now, one of the big issues that they're having here is they need donations. I was speaking to Mary Sylvia Caribou. She is with EMO with Puckatawagan, and this is her third evacuation. She says that they are desperate for items. They don't need food, but they need diapers for babies. They need shoes for adults and children, and they do need children's clothing. And just a few minutes ago, a large trailer from the Manitoba Métis Federation just pulled up. They've had all their donations out in the middle of a field under a tent, and it's starting to spit now with rain, and so they're hoping that they're able to get the donations into this trailer. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. Now, the city of Flin Flon has so far been spared in this wildfire fight. On Friday, Mayor George Fontaine feared the worst. And while the city has been evacuated and no structures have been damaged by the fire burning just outside of Flin Flon, Fontaine says they're not in the clear.
I've been expecting to hear that, catastrophic news, and so the fact that I've not heard that is really made me feel a whole lot better. But it's still, they're still in the same situation. It's a time bomb, and I'm hoping that it goes in a positive direction, and we continue to do what we do.
Fontaine says he's also aware of people posting on social media about firefighters being injured. He says no firefighters have been hurt, and to spread false news is torture to their families. Evacuees from Northern First Nations say they are grateful for help from another Indigenous community. Peguis First Nation is offering to shelter evacuees from Pimachikamak. Peguis itself has been evacuated multiple times over the years because of floods and wildfires. More than 150 people from Pimachikamak arrived in Peguis over the weekend, including Lori Osborne and her family.
I had no idea that Peguis went through a bunch of floods. But I just want to say thank you to Peguis. I really appreciate them letting us Pimachikamak people in their home.
The evacuees are staying at the Peguis Multiplex Center, which can house about 300 people. Thousands flooded downtown Winnipeg yesterday in a display of love and unity for the annual Pride Parade. Tara Morissette has been walking with her children in this event for years.
As a person who grew up with a non-supportive parent, it's very important to me to show my kids that I don't care. I don't care who you are, what you do, who you do. I love you infinitely.
Pride Winnipeg President Barry Karlenzeg says this year's was one of the largest Pride parades he's seen in his 15 years with the organization. More than 10,000 people took part. You can find the latest news, including the latest on the wildfire situation, updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Big thanks to our news department, Megan Ketchison, Joni Nicolo, and Heather Wells there with our newscast. Also our associate producers who worked on today's show, Chidi Akuma, Marshall Hodgins, and Sid Sundance Horshig, as well as our live team, Abby Adiyemi, Travis Peterson, Corey Funk, and Sierra Sanders, who's here with the last quick traffic.
Recently from the Traffic Management Center, it's Portage and Dominion. A collision is blocking the westbound curb and middle lanes. Keep left to pass and expect westbound delays.
All right, Abby?
It's smoky across the province, poor air quality in place. Winnipeg sits at 18. We see most of the southern regions warm to 20. The north will stay smoky and gets to 18 degrees today.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
So big thanks to everybody who put the show together today. Thank you for listening wherever you're listening from, and a special note to evacuees and to those who are displaced. When we have moments like this in Manitoba, states of emergency, unprecedented number of people on the move, we like to try to connect everybody. So on Wednesday, on Radio Noon, we are inviting anyone, make a date with Radio Noon Wednesday, with a message, a thank you, maybe something important that needs to go out, maybe something you need. We're trying to connect people across the province about the wildfires and evacuations. So make a date with Wednesday's Radio Noon for the call-in. If you want to leave a message now, if you already have a story that you want to share, big thanks to give out, 788-3797. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for listening to Monday's show. We'll talk to you tomorrow.